across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yes, welcome back. It is the home of common sense. Thank you to Julia. She's back tomorrow morning. As you've been hearing, Downing Street have said Sir Keir Starmer believes that Lord Mandelson should not be a member of the House of Lords and has asked the Cabinet Secretary to urgently review all available information on contact between the former minister and Jeffrey Epstein. Peter Mandelson, should he lose his peerage, he'll be gone by 4 o'clock this afternoon. We always set the deadlines. We've got a... Well, I say 100% hit rate, sort of 100%. 4 o'clock this afternoon, Mandelson gone from the House of Lords. Also this afternoon, Keir Starmer facing fresh calls from Labour MPs to stop asylum seekers being housed in new council houses. Could there be another U-turn coming, Keir? We're talking about a bill that has gone up by about 83 million quid. It is just off the scale. Details to come. And a study has revealed that Britain's welfare claimants are receiving more than 10 billion in hidden benefits on top of universal credit payments of 100 billion. I mean, the list goes on. We are in incredibly troubled times when it comes to the finances. I'll come back to the Epstein thing in a moment, but lines are open 0344 499 1000. When should Peter Mandelson lose his peerage? Should Peter Mandelson lose his peerage? 4 o'clock this afternoon is the deadline we're setting. We're also going to ask this question as well about where you think, and it might sound like a daft question to some of you, where should this country house illegal migrants? We know that Keir Starmer is facing calls to scrap plans to put asylum seekers in new council homes. This potentially forces the Prime Minister into another U-turn. What, another one? He loves them. He can't get out of bed in the morning without a U-turn. I swear he does a U-ey around the bed. Around 200 local authorities, of course, initially registered interest in a pilot scheme that would fund building homes or refurbishing derelict sites for asylum seekers. This is... I mean, how does this get a free pass? Well, that should be on the front pages every day. They're literally building houses for people who jumped on a rubber boat from Calais to Dover. That's the reality of it. And if whatever the arguments are, I've long argued that the most powerful argument, it's not about who's a criminal, it's not about, which country somebody came from, etc. If nothing else, the finances don't stack up. We were only talking last week about the unsustainable nature of Britain's welfare bill. Well, councils spent almost 750 million on social care for migrants last year, after costs tripled in 5 years. Local authorities spent 134 million on social care for adult migrants, up from 50.6 million 5 years ago, which is just sort of beyond extraordinary. Social care for asylum seekers cost 744 million in 24-25, in addition to the 2 billion each year spent on hotels and subsistence. The economic argument, if nothing else, should be enough for anyone. I don't care what your stripes are politically. You could be a loony lefty or a rabid righty. Everybody in between as well should completely concur that that is unsustainable. We are talking billions of taxpayers' money, and the last time I looked, we're a bit skint in this country. 0344 499 1000. Where should illegal migrants be housed? Your responses on that, please. And I also want to talk about this man.
I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done.
Oh, you're such a sincere man, Peter, aren't you? Very considered. I did nothing wrong. I just hung around with an old pedo for too long. We've all done it. No, we haven't, Peter Mandelson. The Epstein story is now something of a Netflix show in terms of the plots and the twists and the miserable cast of characters. I can't be alone in this, by the way. Can I just make a mention about social media and the Epstein story, which seems to be the main area where this stuff is prominently discussed, debated and indeed published. It's almost impossible now to work out what is true and what is not true. What a weird world we've ended up in. Remember, Twitter calls itself, we are the media now. This is the new media. No, it ain't the new media. It's a fog of absolute tripe, BS and confusion. No one is defending disgusting blokes who can only find their fun with younger and sometimes underage girls. That's a given. But you know what? Some of this is lost. The real story, the victims should be the story here. Getting to the truth and getting justice for victims. And it is clouded by this cacophony, this tsunami of faked up images of Donald Trump ones are in another league. Even the photos that are actually real are invariably pictures of him with his daughter, Ivanka. Have you seen some of those? When she was a kid, or even his granddaughter. There's one of Trump. This is absolutely true. There's one of Trump walking into an awards ceremony with his kid, okay, when Ivanka's about, 6 years old. He's holding her hand, and there's about 23 million comments with, frankly laughable, but ultimately dangerous comments. Things like, look, this is your future president. He's not even hiding it. That kid must be about 6. Now, you don't need to be a journalist or a lawyer to know when Donald Trump turned up at the Oscars, he was hardly going with a date with a 6-year-old child and nobody noticed, right? You can imagine the showbiz oh, look, here's Donald Trump with his new girlfriend. She's 72 months old. I think somebody might have spotted that back then. But that doesn't stop God knows how many throwing that out there. He's just one. So the sort of people who hate Donald Trump are happy to share that. The people that love Donald Trump refute it, and they'll share a picture of Bill Clinton, which is also faked. Some of the pictures are real of these guys at parties and hanging around, dancing, laying in a pool or whatever. But the fog of confusion is off the scale now. And remember, this is a site that's owned by a billionaire who claims that his platform is where the truth is. We are the media now. All that old claptrap. It's not just Trump, as I say. God knows how many high-profile people have found themselves on the business end of a swift Photoshop session or a moody AI video. It's all over the place, and it distracts, in some cases, completely obliterates and dilutes the seriousness of what we're dealing with here, and that is the systemic abuse of young girls by a billionaire and clearly some of his inner circle. And it's not just about abuse in the sexual sense. This goes to the epicenter of powerful people, people who want connections, who like connections. Interestingly, two of the most high-profile people in this country that were connected to Epstein are not actually accused of sexual impropriety, but turning a blind eye to it. I'm thinking of Sarah Ferguson, of course, and Peter Mandelson. What a greedy pair of old piglets they are, right? But Sarah Ferguson and Peter Mandelson, what did they want? Money. That's what they wanted from this bloke. Prestige. That's what they wanted. How can this man, Mandelson, remain in the House of Lords? We haven't even mentioned, by the way, Prince Andrew. The former Prince Andrew. He's up to his neck in it. Remember this.
You were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
Yeah, that's what happens. You know, when you're trying to book your holiday and you go on bookings.com and you're looking around, there's a house here, you might want to try one of those Airbnb places. You can't get a hotel, it's absolutely rammed. Don't worry, pedos are us. They've got plenty of space. Just check out one of those grim sites and they'll show you it's a convenient place to stay. Unfortunately, the Four Seasons was chocker. Had to go pedo-bound for this one. We've all done it. I mean, this is absolutely nuts. And in the last hour, we hear that that Lord Mandelson leaked confidential Downing Street documents to Jeffrey Epstein when he was business secretary. This is according to the Telegraph, I would say. I'm sure Mr. Mandelson would deny all knowledge. The peer forwarded an economic briefing for Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister at the time, to Epstein in 2009, saying, interesting note that's gone to the PM. That, of course, has now prompted calls for a criminal investigation. I'm pretty sure that is criminal. to leak notes. Is that a sort of for your eyes only thing? Maybe it is. And then, of course, you know, we have this man, every time Mandelson turns up, you think he's come back, you think, and then something happens, he gets fired. What a way to end a career. Then at the weekend, he's photographed, or a picture has emerged of him in his Aldi white pants. Surely the final indignation. Then he resigns from the Labour Party. Now the Prime Minister is saying, this man has got to go from the House of Lords. I give him till 4 o'clock this afternoon. Gwen Towler is in, thank goodness, so I can take a breath. How are you, Gwen?
Yeah, nothing happens.
Nothing happens, really, does it? For those who don't know,
Wasn't
Gwen,
he called?
I was just about to give you your full title. Political strategist, that's good. Reform UK board member.
Indeed, indeed.
And no friend of Peter Mandelson.
Actually, I've only met him a few times.
Very charming man, I've met him
I
too.
used to, when he was European Commissioner, I was semi-regularly dropped at dinner parties opposite him to see if there were fireworks, because I was UKIP and he was obviously Peter Mandelson.
Of course.
And he's a delightful and charming dinner companion.
Indeed. Yeah.
And great fun and all the rest of it. So, but that's all my links with him. I do think, I mean, the fact he's photographed in his wife fronts or his boxer shorts with a woman doesn't seem to be a problem for me.
Well, indeed, yes, there is that.
What's the issue here?
And of course, you never know who the woman is. Understandably, they blank out. I get the reasoning behind it, but I mean, it could be somebody who's. I mean, I don't think, and I'm sure we're on safe ground here. Peter's interest in women
is less.
It doesn't really
less
exist.
than others.
So, you know, as a gay man, I don't imagine he was there for those reasons. But he loved power and money, didn't he?
He did, and he always has done. I mean, I used to joke that I'm the only person who's been sacked more often than Mandelson, but I think he's overtaken me.
Is he really? That's an outrage as well. We'll stick that on his CV of doom. Terrible. He's overtaken you.
I know, it's appalling. But no, look, I am getting weariness and fatigue. I think Starmer's statement is absolutely wrong. Yes, give him to the committee, the Standards Committee, absolutely. But don't prejudge their judgment.
Well, that's a very good point. As a Prime Minister.
Aren't you the lawyer? Aren't you the great lawyer? The rule of law, everything's by the book. But you've prejudged that judgment. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, but it is not the position of the Prime Minister to prejudge the judgment of a committee.
Yeah, but he's trying to get the...
He's getting ahead of the game. You're 4 o'clock. I mean, who knows what he's doing by 4 o'clock?
He's got until 4. If not, I'm phoning him up.
But aren't there other U-turns he's got to do?
Yeah, he's got other
U-turns. He's got
another 7.
He's got a whole bunch of U-turns he's got to make.
2 an hour, so that's 6 by 4 o'clock. So he never lets us down. Mandelson is interesting, though, as you rightly say. He's a very charming character, and he's, you know, that was his thing.
It's always money with him, isn't it?
And if you remember the perfectly relaxed about the filthy rich and all of that, but he lost 2 cabinet positions.
His own issues were always money and power.
People use that phrase, the architect of his own downfall. I mean, it really is that, isn't it?
Yes,
on all of these occasions.
He is a brilliant man with flaws the size of the Red Sea.
Yes.
It is an ignoble way to finish a career.
It really is. We were saying in the office, you know, he would have woken up on Sunday morning, probably his copy of the Telegraph, popped through that big old townhouse, half purchased with his mate's money. That was the first time I think he had to resign, wasn't it? And he would have looked at that and thought, that's me on the front of the Telegraph, and it's a huge photo of me in my pants, looking at an iPad.
But wasn't the last time there was a photograph of him in a bush?
Was there
taking
one
a
before?
pee, wasn't he?
Yes, there was. That was a couple of weeks back, wasn't it?
That was the previous photograph.
So we've had. Can this man not keep his trousers on? What's wrong with Peter Mandelson?
I have to say, normally when I go to the loo, I take my trousers off. I think it's a normal proceed.
What, completely?
Yeah, no, not completely, but I mean, it depends what I'm doing.
Well, that would be quite an OCD moment, wouldn't it? Yeah, I just have to do it.
But I don't keep them fully on, at least.
Yeah, no, I do, yeah, it goes with the territory.
But look...
He can't survive, though, can he, now in the House of Lords?
No, but I mean, what's he going to do? I suspect he'll leave the country.
I mean, and then, of course, not just the cabinet positions and then all of this, in between, he becomes His Excellency, the ambassador to the United States, which, if ever a job was designed for Mandelson, you get
it would have been perfect.
People
if it
call
wasn't
you.
for these character flaws...
Yes.
I remember this, much of this is historic. Remember one of these character flaws, he would be a brilliant ambassador.
Yeah, he was probably cut out for the job.
And as I say, the fact that he and I were able to get on very well in Brussels back in the day, before the referendum, he would be brilliant at that.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the very few Labour figures who could deal with the Trump White House, and that's a vital job in the current climate.
Yeah.
And so it is a shame in that way.
But does it show a terrible lack of judgment from Starmer? Because Starmer...
Starmer knew some of these things.
Yes, indeed, but Starmer was seduced, exactly what we were just talking about. I think he thought, didn't he say in the press conference, it's just Peter.
Well, it's
like good old Peter, regularly dropping his trousers
like
and hanging around with
thumping
paedophiles.
people. But I mean, it's just John. But there was, and it's gone now, but there was a bit of the old-fashioned meaning of the word glamour about Mandelson. He had that glamour. He was able to bewitch. But time and time again, he's come a cropper, and time again, he came back. I think this time it's permanent.
I think it has to be. But didn't we say that every time?
No, I don't think we did, not quite the same way. And also because this is tied into the Epstein scandal, and the Epstein scandal has become this sort of jotting note of the annoyed against the rich. Of any sort. Most people who are in those papers, I suspect, are not involved in the shenanigans.
Correct.
But it's a question of some guys invited me to a private island. You know, I'll do that.
Yeah, I think he just liked it.
I'm not going to say I wouldn't myself in those circumstances, not knowing the backstory.
Yeah, nobody, just by association of somebody over 20, 30 years. I mean, if you know somebody now, and in 10 years' time they do something horrendous, are we all to blame for knowing them in the past?
The idea that Mandelson was leaking documents from Number 10 briefings...
That's serious.
Now, we don't know if that was top-secret documents. I suspect they probably were, if it's cabinet briefings. That is actually very serious. If it was to a foreign power, that would be treason.
100%, yeah.
That would be treason if it was to a foreign power.
Completely. And you would go to jail.
And if it's commercial, and it sounds like it is commercial...
You're absolutely going to the
bang to
chiller.
rights and all sorts of stuff.
Of course you are. There was another character, of course, just briefly before we pause, Gwen. Sarah Ferguson, also, she's rife in these emails. Again, not for any sexual misdemeanours, but she also liked to get up close. You know, whenever she was short of a few quid, she rang this Epstein fella, it seems. Even putting on one of her emails, I want to marry you or marry me or something.
Because
I know she was just being silly.
Yeah, she was just being silly, and I think...
But
I hope my emails never come out. I've said the most daft things about all sorts, to all sorts of people.
Oh, yes. I mean, that one you sent me last night was an absolute corker, frankly. I absolutely loved it. It was hilarious. I've seen such humour and wit. We are going to take a short pause, Gwen. Gwen Towler with us. We'll talk about... this incredible ballooning asylum bill in just a second as well. It is off the scale. We'll come to that. Peter Mandelson, should he lose his peerage? Thoughts on that? Where should illegal migrants be housed? We'll come back to that with Gwen in a couple of moments' time. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, 22 minutes after 1. Gwen Towler is with us, Reform UK board member, political strategist, and a man who's been around the political block for about 7 decades. Not quite, but you take the point. Probably feels like that.
It does feel that way at times.
Let's talk about Keir Starmer here, facing calls from Labour MPs to scrap plans to put asylum seekers into new council homes. I mean, that line would have just been out of the thick of it a few years back, but it's a very real one, potentially forcing Starmer into another U-turn, of course. Aren't there plenty of council houses, though? Do you remember when Keir Starmer was there at the Select Committee, the Liaison Committee? This is what he had to say on social housing.
Just a pinpoint before. What other accommodation precisely are you planning to take over to provide temporary accommodation for families?
Oh, there's lots of housing in many local authorities that can be used, and we're identifying where it can be used. But I mean, look.
Sorry, could you give us? Have you got any examples you can give us?
No, but I'll write in and give you details.
Because I could say certainly in a number of our local authorities, I'm already picking up from around the table, there isn't a lot of spare housing available. If there were, councils would be able to be dealing with it by now.
Well, exactly.
I'll write in and get... It's not points of view. I mean, what's going on there? I'll write in with some detail. I don't think he ever did.
No, the problem is he opens his mouth, and it's the classic, he opens his mouth and it feels like it's a lie.
Yeah, it really does. And this particular story, around 200... Remember, there were about 200 local authorities showed an interest in this. Because
they get money.
Well, they get money. It gets everybody out of the hotels.
Councils are desperate for money because they're being basically stiffed for the adult social care and the SEND kids, which should never have been on the tick of the local councils. These are national priorities.
Yeah, of course.
And these are open-ended requirements on the basis on councils, and they can't afford the stuff they should be doing, which includes council housing. Yeah. And then they have the responsibility, as they farm out these migrants across the country, they have the responsibility to house them. And I would think most people who are going to phone you in or write you in with your question you ask, where should they be housed? In their home countries, I think is the obvious answer to that.
I think
not
most
here.
People would concur. Well, I've always felt, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, because when you discuss something like immigration, obviously it divvies up slightly on political lines, and those on the left say, you know, these are desperate people, they've fled a tyrannical regime, we must help them, and those on the right tend to say, sorry mate, this is not our problem, this is illegal activity, you should not be here. I've always thought, and it may not be the best way to sell it because perhaps the figures get lost, I think the economic argument, if nothing else, whatever the stories are, whatever, the economic argument is so big and powerful. Billions a year being spent.
Yeah, they are, and when you have people like Jonathan Brash from Hartlepool kicking off, he's a loyalist.
Yeah.
These aren't the normal, these aren't the people who rebelled over the welfare reforms, by the way. These are the other lot.
That's the other lot. Yes, that's right.
So these are the ones who look at the ground, see the spectre of reform breathing down their electoral neck, and realise that this is the sort of thing of madness. How to insult hard-working people in small towns up and down this country. How to really hold them in contempt. They work their socks off. They are the alarm clock people. They work their socks off. They get up, they work, and they see people on benefits doing better than them, people getting extra bonuses on that, and then they see this. You've been on the housing list for 15 years, but because you're married with kids, because you're married, you've done the right thing.
Yeah.
You're at the bottom of the list.
That's right. I mean, how?
How is that the case?
And you also
if you've got kids, you're a little bit higher up.
Yeah, of course.
But a single mother is one place, and now it looks like illegal migrants or asylum seekers are going to be higher than them. It's just wrong. It is not fair.
And veterans as well. People talk about veterans, and they say, well, this is just a distraction. It's too much of a seductive argument. I'm sorry, if you've served 20 years for your country in Afghanistan, you come home and discover you are below somebody on the list who just floated across the channel in a rubber boat, you've got the right to be grumpy about it.
I would be deeply grumpy, and there are, not a huge number, but there are homeless veterans. There are.
Yeah.
And there should not be a single one.
Indeed.
But we feel, what with the way that the government is chasing down, this government of law is chasing down old soldiers in the courts, and then former other veterans who can't find themselves somewhere to live are seeing these people being given things above them. Yeah. Even loyalist Labour politicians are starting to realise this is wrong. But when will they wake up? It's not just this that's wrong, it's the whole system. It's everything that's done. It's not just them getting the housing, it's the fact that they're being encouraged to come here in the first place.
Can reform, if they form a government in 2029, Gwaine, and they've talked a lot about this, they've almost, you know, put their, more or less put their promise to sorting this out. How long would it be, do you think? So, Mr Farage turns up at number 10, I've just been to see the King, I'm going to form a government, etc. What are we talking about? Weeks, months or years?
I think if reform do not prove to the country within 12 months that they've got a handle on it and it's starting to turn, the reform will be in trouble. If we do not set it out in the first 100 days, it's going to be difficult. But we have to be ready. We have to know what we're doing. We have to be prepared. We have to have a plan, and that plan is definitely in process. There's statements have been made about indefinite leave to remain and things of this sort. They need to be finessed. They need to be improved. But those building blocks are there. But if we cannot turn to the people of this country and say, "You voted for us because of this," as they voted for the Tories time and again, "You voted for us because of this, and this is how we're going to solve it, and this is what we're going to do." And if we can do that in the first couple of months, and then by the first year show that the process is working, then we'll be okay. But if we can't, we will be as distrusted and despised as everybody else.
That's a good point. Let's just finish on this. I think you'll remember this this little speech, Gwaine. Let's have a listen.
That 99% of the meetings I go to, I'm the only non-white person in the room. My portfolio alone, the Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every prison governor, white.
And now, that was Hamza Youssef, of course, in a moment of madness, the half-wit carried on. Now the countryside is also too white.
Oh, it's not the only place. They've been talking about the countryside being too white for quite a while.
It has come up before, isn't it? But now a definite nationwide plans.
Dogs in Wales, there were suggestions that dogs should be banned from Snowdonia.
That's right, because they might upset people who don't like dogs. I mean, who the hell is leading this stuff?
But who?
Well,
what group of society?
DEFRA-led nationwide plans aim to make national landscapes less white, targeting areas like the Chilterns and the Cotswolds.
To be fair, these days they are quite brown. They're muddy. I spend a lot of time walking over them.
That's very true. That's very true.
But look, it's just pointless, utterly pointless. In the Cotswolds, they want to make. They've got an issue because pubs serve beer. I mean, seriously, pubs sell beer. Well, that's not very friendly, is it?
Well,
look, I'm only too happy for anybody, to enjoy the beauties of our countryside. I really am. I'd spend a lot of time in the Cotswolds. I spend a lot of time in various parts of the country, walking the hills, looking at hill forts and stuff of this sort. I know it's our history, but fine. Anybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome.
And nobody ever said they're not welcome.
I know.
I remember
actually quite a long time ago. It was rather wonderful. I was at Fountains Abbey. It was a nice enough day. These 3 coaches turned up, and all these ladies came out in headscarves.
Yeah.
And it was an outing from the local
ladies
from Birmingham, from old ladies in headscarves from the local one of the Birmingham mosque.
Oh right, okay, those sort of headscarves.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you meant like the old
There's about
headscarf.
70, 80 of them. These 3 coaches turned up.
Okay.
And they all piled out, and I talked to them, and they were delighted. They were learning about the history locally. They didn't know it, and they were going to Fountains Abbey.
So this is. So are you telling me?
Problem?
Are you telling me some brown people have already been to the countryside?
I know, it's astonishing, isn't it?
They've got a scoop here.
It is fatuous. It is idiotic. Yeah. It is, and it makes everybody laugh at them. It is noticeable that in most cases it's Liberal Democrat councils.
This is the funny thing about all these. It's a bit like the kind of Christmas decoration story. We can't.
North Yorkshire is Tory, but I think it's around Harrogate, isn't it?
I think it is. Yes.
Look,
but it doesn't normally come from a brown person, these proposals.
No,
it always comes from
idiots.
a daft liberal who goes, I think we need to make the place more less white.
I mean, anybody is everybody's welcome. The countryside loves people.
Yeah.
But it likes them to close the gates.
Whoever you are, yes, black, brown, white, anything you like.
Yep.
Close the bloody gates. What's wrong with you? And keep your dog on a lead if there's sheep around.
Keep your dog off if the sheep are around.
Yeah.
But don't not turn up with your dog because you're worried about some group of people who don't like dogs.
And if you're Peter Mandelson, don't piddle in a pub doorway. It's not a good look.
Well, at least not under CCTV.
That would be helpful. Gwaine, we hit the clock. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, pleasure.
Gwaine Towner with us on the programme. Over to you, 0344 499 1000. Couple of questions there. Where would you house illegal migrants? The council has, I'm sorry, you cannot in any shape or form find yourself surely on a council house list if you've come here illegally, but apparently you can. And shouldn't Peter Mandelson resign his peerage? He's going to get pushed. I reckon by 4 o'clock this afternoon, he will have walked the plank. Our lines are open. 1:30, this is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is from Carol, Shoreham by Sea, who says, Ian and Gwaine, illegal migrants should be housed in France or in their own country. We did not vote for this invasion. We did not want or need these people in the country and would certainly should not be forced to pay for them, resulting in the detriment of our own services. Stop this insanity, please. Have a good afternoon. Carol, thank you for that. The money, just think about the money. Whatever the arguments are, people will forever argue, you know, there is obviously going to be a contingent of really undesirable people. And we've seen this borne out in court cases, and we see the disquiet in certain areas where, understandably, some people say, well, really? They've just opened this, there's 600 people living in the... Whatever the arguments are about that, whatever, even if you said to me, you know, we can absolutely guarantee there's not a single criminally minded person living there. Happy to believe that, all right? So let's just take the economic argument, which is so big. It is the bill for this in total, when you consider hotel accommodation, social care, which is there as well, all of the other elements that go with it, is in the billions. It's in the billions. So the economic argument has to be surely the most powerful, the most persuasive argument, whether you're left-wing, right-wing, or anywhere in between. Those numbers are unsustainable. 0344 499 1000. And we see that statistic that council spending on adult migrant social care has risen by 83 million. 83 million in 5 years. That's the rise. 83 million. In a moment, we'll speak to Katie Bourne, Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner and APCC lead for business crime as well. First, Darwin Friend, researcher at the Taxpayers Alliance, is with us. Darwin, good afternoon to you. I mean, I made the point for years. I perhaps thought I was making the wrong argument, but I've long felt it's possibly the most accurate one because it's demonstrable, it's evidence-led, that the cost alone of this bizarre experiment, if you want to look at it like that, is not sustainable.
Well, firstly, good afternoon, Ian, and thanks very much for having me on the show. And you're completely right. It's not sustainable. And you mentioned the social care costs alone. For adult asylum seekers, it's gone up £83 million, as you say. That's an 165% increase on 5 years ago. It's gone from 51 million to 134 million pounds in the last financial year. And the important thing to recognise about that is that's only for adult asylum seekers. When we throw in all asylum seekers as well, that figure actually skyrockets to 700 £544 million in the last financial year. And I think ultimately I actually feel sorry for the councils that are having to deliver these social care obligations, because they're a statutory duty. They have no option about delivering social care whether they want to or not anyway. And ultimately what the government needs to do, the central government, is they need to crack down on this illegal migrant crisis, because that's the only way we're going to bring these costs down for taxpayers.
And I would have thought, you know, I keep making the point. I make the point in the hope that I'm not sounding like some reactionary dodgepot, but, you know, I hope a reasonably intelligent bloke who's considered all of the arguments in terms of accommodation, in terms of social cohesion, but in terms of the raw cost of all of this, which is, yeah, we've just been discussing, is kind of off the scale. And then we have this curious, almost beyond satire moment where the government say, yeah, we're going to get rid, and we're going to boast about closing the hotel, all the migrant hotels, we're going to close all the hotels. We absolutely agree it was outrageous. Oh, what uncare? Except for the fact we're just going to put all of those people into homes of multiple occupancy or newly built or refurbished council houses, and we'll address it that way, which of course doesn't in any shape or form socially or economically solve the problem. In fact, you could argue it creates a bigger one.
Yeah, and I think you've really hit the nail on the head, because that's the root cause of this problem, is one of fairness, I think, for people up and down the country. They do not think it's fair that we're spending almost £6 million a day on housing 36,000 migrants in hotels across this country. But then they also don't think it's fair when there's 1.3 million people waiting on the social housing waiting list, that their new council housing is going to be dished out for people who have potentially come into this country illegally. And so what the government needs to have at its heart when it's trying to solve this issue, and I think this goes for whichever party is in power, is that yes, the money is important, extremely important, because obviously we're all paying for this, but it's also about what's right and wrong. And you need people who do the right thing should be rewarded for those things, and people who do the wrong thing should not simply be allowed to spend millions of pounds on them in order to house them in this country. Indeed. Darwin, thank you for your time, sir. Really appreciate that. Darwin Friend, researcher at the Taxpayers Alliance. Let's get a word from Katie Bourne, Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner. Katie, good afternoon to you. Of course, Sussex, bit of a focus at the moment because Crowborough, of course, sits neatly in your beautiful county there. What kind of conversations, without betraying confidentiality, do you have with your Chief Constable in terms of how this element is policed? And Crowborough is just, of course, one area, but it seems to be a big focus at the moment. How's that going?
Well, good afternoon to you, Ian, and thanks for having me on. We've just put a bid into the Home Office for the next 12 months to cover the cost of policing Crowborough. And the bid comes to an eye-watering £5.6 million. Wow. And I wrote to the Home Office back in November, and then we revised the amount in December. And I hadn't heard from them for 5 weeks. And I got a little bit fed up. And I had to go out to the media to say, are you going to engage? Or are you just going to pretend we don't exist? So we've got a meeting next week to go through. And they are literally going to go through it line by line and see if the bid that we put in is worth them paying for. And let me make no mistake here, this is the government's responsibility to pay for this. Yeah. It should not come out of the pockets of my local taxpayers in Sussex. You know, they pay enough towards policing our county as it is.
And the issue that was being proposed, of course, Katie, is that you take people out of hotels, or in this case, former army barracks, or army barracks that were still had a use, and whatever was going on in there, whether it's cadets or whatever, sorry, go and find somewhere else. We've got bigger fish to fry. And then put these people into sort of homes or houses of multiple occupancy or former council houses, which doesn't, you know, you talked about the bill to local taxpayers. That bill will still be there. It will just be that people are living in a different postcode.
Well, I think if migrants go into housing, into sort of different occupancy housing, obviously that's going to have sort of a pepper pot effect. But what's really incensed the people of Crowborough more than anything is the fact that it's up to 540 male migrants. These are all male. Yeah. And that is the concern that the local community has. You know, I've spoken to many families women, children, dads, aunties, uncles, you name it. And their big concern is for our children and our women particularly, how safe are they going to be? Now, we're not, they're not saying that every migrant is going to be a troublemaker, far from it, but it's just the concentration of men all in one space.
100%, and it wouldn't matter whether, if that was any group of men or any colour or background, I think we'd still be having the discussion, wouldn't we? Hang on a second, just up the road from that school or that housing estate, 600 men have just arrived and they're all living in one place. I think anyone would still go, hang on, is that it's a bit strange? They're all about 23 on average. I could see this could be a problem. As you rightly said, Katie, no one is suggesting every migrant is some kind of criminal. Let's assume none of them are criminals. You're still left with the irredeemable reality that you've put 600 people, pretty much, in one place. That is troubling. It's troubling socially. It's troubling economically.
And they're not confined there because, they're allowed to wander and roam and go where they want. In fact, buses are laid on for them to go into local towns like Tunbridge Wells and so on. But what is more troubling, I think, for people is the fact that they unless they've been missing for 7 days, only then does the Home Office get in touch with them to see if they can find them. And this is the problem. And right opposite the camp where they're going in, there is a bus route, and that bus route is the only one, and it goes right through to the schools. Kids travel on it and so on. And I get why people are concerned. So this is a huge amount of, there's a lot of pressure now on policing. We've just had a really bad funding settlement from government, which, and this just represents the issue, this malaise that this government have. They're not funding our police properly. They're now pushing a lot of expectation on the police. We're expecting us to pay for it out of our own pockets, and I've just had enough. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with our meetings with the Home Office next week.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to fly on the wall on that one, Katie. Do report back. What's interesting, though, is, you're a Conservative, but it's not just Tories or Reform or anyone else. We've now got Labour MPs who are saying, this can't go on. People like Graham Stringer, Jonathan Brash, who are criticising these these sort of schemes and this, well, I suppose the entirety of this issue, but in particular this pilot idea of putting people back into sort of from hotels into council houses. So when it comes from Labour backbenches, you think the government might start to really listen?
Well, smart politicians are listening to the communities that elect them and representing their views. I got admonished on Friday by the group of people, all local councillors, who are meant to scrutinise my decisions, and they took a public vote of no confidence in me because I'm speaking out on behalf of residents of Crowborough. I'm doing my job, and I'm getting cancelled for doing it, which is outrageous.
What bothered them so much? What was was there anything specific, or was it just the overarching feel they didn't like about you, Katie?
I think it's the ideology. It blinds them to what matters to our communities, completely blinds them. And they accused me of racism, of speaking out against, just because I've said, why don't we also look at tagging the migrants, not as a punishment, but actually as a form of protection for them as well. So these men who are coming to Crowborough who have no documentation, if they were to wear a tag, not only would it allow the authorities to keep track, because they are allowed to wander around and many do go missing, it would allow the authorities to keep track while they are applying for their asylum. Obviously, if they get asylum granted, then brilliant, welcome to Britain, and people will be very welcoming of them. But it will also stop the organised crime gangs from preying on them, because we know from evidence elsewhere that organised criminality will seek out vulnerability. And a lot of these individuals are potentially vulnerable as well. And wearing a tag is as much for their protection as for anything else. So I've been publicly admonished for this.
I don't understand why. The evidence is in how we deal with security in other areas. And again, something I seem to be repeating myself quite a lot at the moment, Katie, today. If you turn up at an airport without any documentation and try to jump over the barrier, you'd be stopped. And if I had the Home Secretary sitting here right now and said, why should Border Force stop people at Heathrow or Gatwick or Manchester, wherever, she would say to me, it's security. We can't just have anybody jump over a fence and off they go. We don't know who the hell they are. We don't know what where they're from. We don't know anything about them. So we have to stop them. You'd get arrested. You'd be put in jail temporarily. You'd probably be deported. And that would be that. But here we have exactly that going on. 600 people, you can mooch around, do what you like. We have no real idea of the identity of the people, which countries they came from, or anything about their backstory. It is beyond belief that we're here now.
And not 600 people, 600 men.
Yeah.
And that is a concern. You know, men, sexually active men, all in one place. And that is the real concern of the families. And I get why. I really do understand that. I think, as you know, the government have lost their way on this.
Yeah,
absolutely
completely.
lost their way. You know, the first order of any government is the protection of its people. And the people have had enough. And let's stop, you know, stop welcoming people here and start preventing them in the first place. It's the only way this is going to stop.
I just don't think it's in this government's heart. It's not in their political DNA. It doesn't ping their antenna.
I'm not sure how many political parties have really got this in their DNA. Certainly, I have, and I'm very proud to stand as a Conservative. And the outpouring of support that I've had over the weekend from people across the county saying, how dare they stop you from speaking up for the communities that have elected you, that you represent. People are outraged because they're taking it personally. It's almost like they're trying to be cancelled. It's as if they don't matter either. It's
a good point. Katie, great to have you on. Thank you. We will speak again, I'm sure. Katie Bourne is the Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner. Thank you to her. Over to Matthew in Warrington on this curious story. Matthew, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi, Ian. Hope you've had a good weekend, mate.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, this migrant crisis and the spiralling cost of it. You know, the cost of housing them. There's HMOs popping up everywhere.
Yep.
Nearly every terrace street in Warrington, where I deliver around, you can see HMOs. That's 6 to 8 migrants going in every single street with no knowledge about them. They don't know anything. They've not had CRB checks. We don't know who they are, but they'll be infiltrating.
Why is that controversial? Why would anybody, like our last guest, who's a police and crime commissioner, getting shouted down, admonished by local do-gooding councillors who are saying, no, you can't say this. You would never apply that, as I just said to her, to someone who legged it over the barrier at Manchester Airport.
It's just shocking. It's shocking. We've got pensioners sat on in alleyway in the hospital waiting for beds, and we can't look after our own. We've got pensioners stuck in their houses who can't be cared for, and our council have got to cater for these people who've not contributed to our system. They don't speak our language. They don't want to take our beliefs up and believe in what we stand for as British citizens. We've got homeless people living in doorways, freezing, yet we can home these people, we can clothe them, we give them mobile phones. It's like we've lost our way of what's right and wrong.
That is literally happening. I often hear people say, if you're a migrant, you don't go to the top of the council list. Well, you might not, they might not put your name there, but because of the group you are with, the cohort you're with, you will get priority housing because you're given a hotel to start with. I'm not saying every single one is like the Ritz, but you've still got a roof over your head, you're warm, you get 3 meals a day and you haven't got any bills. So, I mean, these comparisons are not kind of mischievous or misplaced. They're bang on.
It's like you might have a woman there who's living in sheltered accommodation, escaping from being a battered wife, and she's looking to find a new home for her children and get away from it. Who checks priority? A couple of young men who don't speak English, who just turned up 2 weeks ago, or a woman who's had a poor life for many years, who wants to escape the tyranny of a husband, or just
absolutely,
who's going to take priority? It won't be the poor lady. It'll be the immigrants.
Unbelievable. Listen, Matthew, I've got to step in just because we've overshot on time. You've been great. Thank you very much for that, Matthew, in Warrington. Over to you for more. 0344 499 1000. So much comment on this. Where should illegal migrants be held if those people are here? And what system should we put in place if we can't send people to their country of origin until cases have been dealt with? Then surely, as our Police and Crime Commissioner said, you'd have some way of tracking the people that are here. I mean, wouldn't that just be, couldn't a 10-year-old work that out, for God's sake? And Peter Mandelson is still a peer in the House of Lords. He could turn up there now, get some free nosh and vote. He's still there, even though the Prime Minister has said probably shouldn't be there anymore. How long has Peter Mandelson got left? Should he resign? We're giving him till 4 o'clock this afternoon. 10 to 2 now. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Margaret in Birmingham, who says there is no law that says we have to house and give illegal migrants anything. Just don't accept illegal migrants. We can see it. We can see why. We can see it. Why can't Starmer and the Home Secretary do something? Stop giving our money away. Stop it. Find a deterrent. A deterrent is the answer to it. Gwaine Taylor was with us earlier. Of course, he's in the inner sanctum of Reform UK. He made the point. Reform have got like a year to prove their credentials on this. And if they can't prove it in a year, they're going to be in real trouble, because central to everything Reform UK stand for is this issue. This issue, by the way, migration, used to be about third on the list of priorities. I think we tended to have NHS, crime, and then battling for third or fourth was immigration and often education. And they move around a bit, but migration is right up there now. It's right up there for obvious reasons. You cannot have 100,000 people almost every year floating into your country and for there to be no repercussions. And whether you have those repercussions because you have concerns about social cohesion, by the way, that's a top reason to have this debate. That's not a mischievous reason. It's a bloody crucial one. It never gets a glance, frankly, when this is being debated. It should do. But above all of that, if you don't like debates about, you know, whether that person's a criminal, whether these people have bad intentions, just look at the economics. Just have a little look at the ledger book and tell me that that is sustainable. 0344 499 1000. We're also discussing Mandelson and the Epstein files. Mandelson, Kaz says, any chance of not showing Mandy and his wife fronts? I feel nausea every time it pops up, the photo. What's next? Starmer in a string vest. Well, be careful what you wish for, Kaz, because, you know, we've got a library of pictures here. Many of them are not publishable. Mandy, Peter Mandelson used to be known as Mandy, of course. That was a kind of nickname that he was known in Westminster. He's been photographed having a little tiddle in the street on a dark night with his little whatsits, and then a picture's emerged of him in his pants somewhere in America. Georgina is down in London. What do we make of this, Georgina? Good afternoon to you.
Oh, good afternoon to you as well.
Hello.
Ian, I mean, I can't stand Mandelson. He's been caught out twice before. The man is a weaselly little cockroach, and he's as crooked as a dog's hind leg. We really need to start bringing these corrupt politicians and other high-ranking individuals to account at some point, as it seems to me that they have carte blanche to do what they please without any accountability, responsibility, or any sense of morality. Do these people have a papal or governmental dispensation to cleanse them of their misdeeds so as they can go through life doing as they wish without accountability, whilst we have to be brought to account for the slightest of misdemeanours and have to be subjected to the full force of the law if we break them? It's a classic case of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Mandelson should be sacked and cast out to Blighty with no perks or governmental pension for being photographed in his undergarments alone. It's disgraceful. We shouldn't have to be subjected to such an abhorrent display. And the FBI, if they need to question these people regarding the Epstein investigation, then it should be mandatory that they go. No excuses, no protection to cover, this cover-up's got to cease, and these individuals need to be brought to account. It's as simple as that, Ian.
Round of applause for Georgina, please. You were so bang on that. Can you just run that past me again, George?
Oh, do me a favour, Ian, really?
Listen, you have a great day. Georgina down in London, 0344 499 1000. This comes in from Michael. Is he in Nye or is he in New York? I'm not sure which. He says, good afternoon, Ian. An ideal location for illegal immigrants would be, is that Inch Island? I think it is, because we've talked about it before, haven't we? INSH, in the Inner Hebrides. It's uninhabited, 90 acres. Ideal for a detention centre and support services. And the last point there, Michael, thank you. The support services. Nobody wants to be cruel here. Nobody wants to freeze somebody or beat somebody or any of that kind of caper. What we're talking about is a sensible policy. The Australian system, it's not quite comparable because the method and the kind of geographical distance of sea and sailing was very different. But under the Aussie system, they've pretty much done away with illegal immigration. You never got to Australia. You never landed in Australia. You were intercepted, you were taken to an island, name escapes me at the moment, and there you stayed until you were processed. And if you were processed and given asylum, you still never went to Australia. You went to another island that was Australian owned. You never got to Australia. And those people were not treated badly. They were not, no human rights were breached, if that's the term you like. They were given food, they were given accommodation while it was being processed, and it was realised after about half an hour, some of the people thinking, I was going to go to Australia, I'm now thinking it might not be worth it. I don't think I'm going to be seeing the Sydney Opera House anytime soon, so I'll make other plans. They probably went to Calais and came here. I don't know. 0344 499 1000. You can drop us a voice note there as well. We've got a dual thing going on here. Illegal immigration. Where should these people be housed or kept? And should Peter Mandelson lose his peerage? Lines are open for calls and voice notes, or you can message 87222. Let's get the news at 2 o'clock.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Yeah, it is the Afternoon Empire. It's also the home of common sense. What are we talking about this afternoon? So much here, and there's more to come, by the way. Keir Starmer facing calls from Labour MPs to scrap plans to put asylum seekers into new council houses. This will potentially force Mr Starmer into another U-turn. Another one? I can hardly wait. Also this afternoon, around 200 local authorities have registered in the... I should say that forms part of that story. 200 local authorities have registered interest in the scheme, but will they continue it? Also this afternoon, Keir Starmer believes Lord Mandelson should not be a member of the House of Lords and has asked the Cabinet Secretary to urgently review all available information on contact between the former minister and Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson is up to his neck in it, not for the first time. I think perhaps now it's crossed a line. We're hearing news that the former Cabinet Secretary, the former EU Commissioner, the former MP, the former Ambassador to the United States, what is he not a former of? In fact, he should just have former written on his business card, because he's former of everything, this fella. We're also hearing there is a story, and this is the Telegraph reporting this, that he might have committed misconduct in a public office by sending commercially sensitive government documents to Jeffrey Epstein. This is back in 2009 when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister. If that turns out to be the case, he's really in trouble. But should he resign from the House of Lords? Absolutely right, he should resign from the House of Lords. Will it happen before 4 o'clock? We will wait and see. And a study has revealed that Britain's welfare claimants are receiving more than $10 billion in hidden benefits on top of universal credit payments of $100 billion. That story just goes in one direction, doesn't it? Every week. It's another figure. It's another couple of billion. Here's another couple of billion. All this stuff is unsustainable. I don't know where we're going to be in 10 years' time. I literally can't imagine what the world is going to, what this country is going to look like in the next decade. 0344 499 1000. This from Victoria, who says, uninhabited island, Nightingale tent cities. They'll be uncomfortable and bored to death, waiting to be deported or accepted. The word will spread not to bother. Border force chasing up stragglers, says Victoria. Well, you do wonder. Paul says, what about the former Captain Underpants? Yes. He will never do the underpant thing again. Well, not knowingly. Now, among all of the latest scandals, it's been revealed that Peter Mandelson, that's what we're talking about, as I just alluded to, leaked confidential Downing Street documents to Jeffrey Epstein when he was the business secretary. This man was so enamoured by power. Just like, what's her name, that other character, Sarah Ferguson. This pair of greedy little piglets, they just loved the money. They loved being in the presence of money. And of course they also realised that, you know, if you need a few quid for your partner or for your failing career or whatever, just ask Jeff. It's an open checkbook. And that's often how it worked, quite literally how it worked. But when you get into the territory of sending private conversations or issues that have come from Downing Street onto somebody outside of Downing Street, you're in altogether very different territory here. We'll speak to Alexander Larman in just a second, author and US books editor at The Spectator. First, Simon Danchuk is with us, former Labour MP, now member of Reform UK. Good afternoon to you, Simon. I mean, I thought the Mandelson story, you know, we kind of, at the time when he was a cabinet secretary, not once but twice, possibly 3 times, I think. He was in and out like a robber's dog, this fella. Always getting fired for something, dodgy loans, passports, you remember it well too. But then he was palmed off to the EU, nice cosy gig as a commissioner. It's a very powerful role, as you know, over there. And then, of course, a few other bits and pieces. He becomes the ambassador, but all the while most of this is going on, of course, one of his best mates is a convicted paedophile who he's still in contact with, even, as we hear today, sharing confidential Downing Street information from the Prime Minister. That's sure. I mean, the other stuff might be, you know, a little bit tabloid and amusing, but this must cross a line, Simon, I would have thought.
I think all of it crosses a line, to be quite honest, Ian. I think there are real questions to be answered here, not least by Keir Starmer. You've got to bear in mind that Peter Mandelson was brought back into the very centre of government because he's very close to Morgan McSweeney, who your listeners will remember is the advisor to the Prime Minister. So Morgan McSweeney is the closest senior advisor to Keir Starmer, and he was mentored by Peter Mandelson. And you might recall that Mandelson were actually involved in the last reshuffle that Keir Starmer had. It was reported that Mandelson was going into the back of Downing Street to help with the reshuffle that the Prime Minister had only a few months ago. So he's been at the very centre, and then he was brought in as US ambassador to get the Chagos deal over the line in Washington. So he's been at the centre of all this, this government. And what we've seen is that Starmer seemed quite happy to have Mandelson on board, even though he knew he'd been friends with a convicted paedophile. It's only now that it's come to light that there's been some sort of alleged corruption involved. As you point out, these documents have come to light that Mandelson has been leaking, and he's also been receiving money from Epstein. And that looks to me like potential corruption. Now, the Prime Minister's answer to this is to say, oh, well, he should stand down from the Lords, and he will get a senior civil servant to have a look at the information that's been leaked. It's wholly inadequate from Starmer, I have to say. He should come out and say, I am going to have him removed from the Lords. It is possible. So he should have him removed from the Lords, and he should call the police in. That's the reality. There's potential corruption here. He should call the police in to investigate.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mentioned just at the beginning this sort of addiction to powerful people. Of course, under Blair, he famously talked about we're quite relaxed with the filthy rich. I'm paraphrasing there, but it was on those lines. And he loves that. He's very at ease and comfortable being with the plutocrats and those that have got a few quid. That really seems to float his boat, Simon.
Yeah, that's how he's built his reputation, isn't it? And it's gone before him in many ways. I was speaking to a former Labour MP earlier today, and they were saying that, you know, that younger people in Labour, Morgan McSweeney, they mentioned Matthew Doyle, who used to be Starmer's communications director, who's now in the House of Lords, Wes Streeting, admired Peter Mandelson. They thought he was a great operator. You know, they worshipped the ground that he walked on. But he's clearly a significantly flawed character. And not just, and you know, he now describes himself as having had an association with Jeffrey Epstein. They were intimate friends. Whose friend's house have you walked round in your underpants? I mean, that's, you know, you just don't do it.
Well, indeed. And of course, all of this would be, you know, for many people would be okay if it predated anything that we knew about Jeffrey Epstein. But of course, it doesn't. And even staying at his house, I think, while he was in jail, for goodness sake.
Yes, and that's the biggest issue. I genuinely believe that some senior Labour figures have a blind spot when it comes to child abuse. And I don't say that lightly, it's true. You've got the Prime Minister prepared to accept Mandelson, a very close friend of a paedophile, to be the US ambassador. Yep. You've got Starmer when he was in the Crown Prosecution Service, failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile. He failed to prosecute more rape gang perpetrators than he could have done, and then he doesn't want to have a national inquiry into the rape gangs. And then Matthew Doyle, his communications director, who is just put into the House of Lords, went out campaigning for a paedophile in Scotland. I mean, there is a blind spot at the top of government in terms of child abuse, and I think it needs addressing.
That's a really interesting point. I think one we will pursue, I'm sure. Simon, great to have you on as ever. Thank you, Simon Danczuk, former Labour MP, now a member of Reform UK. Let's get a word from Alexander Larman, author and US books editor of The Spectator. Alexander, good afternoon to you. No, I know you've written a lot about Epstein, Mandelson, Andrew, all of these. I don't know what to call the Andrew fella these days. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, I think, is the official title. But just on that last point that Simon was making, what is your kind of assessment of these characters? And we've just named an obvious two there, the former Prince Andrew, Peter Mandelson, well, we could throw in Sarah Ferguson, various other characters that are so charmed by certain individuals. I mean, it could just be the money, maybe it's something more, that they will almost ignore what's in front of them. Mandelson staying at Epstein's place while he was in jail, for goodness sake. So they knew, all of these people knew. Even Prince Andrew in that famous interview says, it was convenient that I stayed there. I mean, of all the excuses from a man who's heir to the throne, or he was then, it was convenient to stay at a paedophile's house. You don't see that advertised on Airbnb.
Well, I mean, if you did, you'd probably get quite a lot of takers for it, I imagine, Ian.
Well, there's a big circle, clearly.
There's a lot of people involved in this. And as somebody was saying earlier, it's quite interesting, actually, because especially on the American right, there's all this discussion about the idea of, the world is ruled by an evil paedophile ring. Well, yes, we can now see there is indeed proof of an evil paedophile ring. And the fact is that obviously the only person who was actually convicted of paedophilia was Jeffrey Epstein, who was no longer with us. But you can see that a lot of people were drawn into his web. And I think, as you say, it's very interesting because you would have thought that people like Peter Mandelson and the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew had enough money and they didn't need to have all this money as well. Because, in fact, I mean, if you look at things like Epstein was paying for Mandelson's husband's osteopathy, his course, and you just think to yourself, it's just a bit pathetic.
Did Peter not have, I mean, I think it was £10,000 or something was mentioned. I'm pretty sure Mandelson has got 10 grand.
Yeah, knocking about underneath a sofa somewhere. Yeah. But you just think to yourself, how could these people have gone along with a complete absence of judgment for so long? And I think the answer is none of these people thought that normal rules of behaviour or indeed normal laws applied to them any more than they applied to Epstein. The fact that what we have to remember is that when Epstein went to prison for his crimes, he had an exceptionally cushy deal. It was basically house arrest. He was taken from his cell to his place of work by chauffeur-driven car and things like that. Essentially, even when he was convicted of crimes that most people would find utterly repellent, he was still being given special treatment. And I think that most people, myself very much included, look at this scandal and the way that it's coming to him. It's every single institution, it's every single person imaginable caught up in it. And the thing that is uniting them all, they all believe that the normal rules of society that you and I and your viewers all go by just didn't apply to them. And it's karma, that's what it is.
And it's interesting, just moving on to the former Prince Andrew. I mean, to me, I mean, Mandelson, OK, he had a reasonable upbringing. He was in the corridors of power. He was around the EU. He'd experienced a level of opulency. Is that the right word? I think so. During his time, he was looked after, chauffeured around a fair bit, stayed in nice hotels. Prince Andrew, however, that's in another league. I mean, this is a man that's literally related to every king and queen in our past. He literally lived in palaces, literally had millions of pounds. What did he need to be monkeying around with a sex offender for?
Well, I think it's quite clear that if these rumours are to be believed and that essentially Andrew was being supplied with girls all the time that he wanted them, it's quite clear that nobody in normal British life was prepared to do that for him, because ultimately, even if you are his employee in Buckingham Palace or wherever else, you're not going to act as a pimp. Whereas Epstein was very happy to act as a pimp, and you can see there's a complete absence of any kind of moral compass when it comes to Epstein. But what's so fascinating is that nobody in the royal family who saw any of this going on, or at least must have heard about it going on, thought it was worth saying to Andrew many years ago, if you do this, if you carry on doing this, it's going to be reputationally disastrous.
What's interesting as well about so many of the images, whether it's Mandelson in his pants or the one we're seeing on our screens now, the former Prince Andrew larking around on a floor with an unnamed female, They're all aware there's a photographer there. Did Epstein constantly have a picture? Was it his sidekick that made sure that, OK, we'll invite all of you lovely people to our house, but don't you worry, we're going to document it? Was there something else going on there?
I think it's almost certain that Epstein was some kind of asset for some kind of foreign power, and that he was trying to accumulate as much compromat as he could on as many people imaginable. Because if you see the way in which, I mean, for instance, surely it's not a coincidence that Andrew is being introduced to a 26-year-old girl called Irena, who was from Russia. And you see as it goes on. I mean, I alternate between finding it hilarious and finding it deeply, deeply depressing. Correct. Because ultimately, you see in Andrew, you see the stupidity, you see the venality, you see the way in which he has absolutely brought shame on his family. I mean, just imagine what the late Queen would say if she could see her favourite son having behaved like this. I mean, it just doesn't even bear thinking about. But I find it so repellent on a moral level that all these girls have been trafficked and basically just used as sex objects for these rich and powerful men, and there's a reckoning coming and they deserve it.
Yeah. Do you sense, just on Epstein himself, that there is, I mean, we've had all this information come out, which, frankly, journalistically, Alexander, I don't know what you're making of it, but bearing in mind, rightly or wrongly, the FBI had set up this kind of hotline where anybody can just ring it and say stuff. All of that is also included in these millions and millions of bits of information and photographs, videos, etc., which has kind of created a sort of curious fog and conspiracy theories and doctored photos and goodness knows what else. Everybody who's anybody at any time in history seems to be mentioned in some shape or form, whether they were or not there. It's very hard. You've really got to trawl through this stuff to find the real story. And I think that the dropping so many millions of bits of information is not necessarily helpful to get to the real centre of the story, which is that there were many female victims who were abused by the rich and powerful. That's what we really want to know about, and we have this kind of obfuscation of the facts because of the deluge of information that's out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's unfortunate in a sense that Virginia Giuffre, who is obviously no longer here to see all this happening, she became quite literally the poster girl for all the abuse that was done in Epstein's name. But there are many, many Virginia Giuffres, and these people are not powerful. These people are not people who have been given the platform that people like Mandelson have been working from. These are, I mean, also something else I found profoundly tasteless was where Mandelson said, "Oh, I didn't see all the abuse because I was gay, so therefore I wasn't being invited to the sex parties." Yes. I just thought to myself, I mean, first of all, it's interesting because there's an email that's been revealed which seems to hint at the idea that Epstein was procuring boys for Mandelson rather than girls. And obviously, that is just something that's being speculated at the moment. But you think to yourself, he was somebody who would have catered to anyone under any circumstances. But also, it's the way that it's the victims of these people who are the ones we should be thinking of.
Do you think when the fog clears and the information is, sifted through and we have all of the facts, I mean, at the moment I've always found it slightly odd that there's only one person in jail for all of this, and that's a female called Ghislaine Maxwell. You'd imagine by now the mood music around all of these drops of information would be that there'd be at least 100 or 200 blokes in jail right now. None. What's going on? What's your sense of what is happening there?
Well, I think one of the issues, and I might well be wrong about this, is that trafficking is a criminal offence in America. I don't know what the law in Britain as it stands is, because obviously if it turned out that somebody had been trafficked and provided to Prince Andrew for sex, and he had no idea and plausibly could say he had no idea that this person had been trafficked, he could say, all I did was to have sex with somebody who appeared to want to have sex with me, which is not a criminal offence. Whereas, of course, in America, I'm fairly sure, as the P. Diddy trial revealed, that if somebody is trafficked in order to have sex with somebody against their will, that is in itself a de facto offence. So what's going to be very interesting is obviously Keir Starmer's been saying that Andrew should actually go to America and testify about Epstein and his involvement with these crimes. And I don't know if Andrew is likely to, but if Andrew steps foot on American soil, I think it's quite likely that the FBI would want to have words with him quite soon.
Yeah, I think he's lost a lot of things, but I bet he hasn't lost his lawyers. So they're probably advising him exactly in the way that you just described. Alexander, great to have you on, sir. Let's speak again. Alexander Larman, really interesting stuff. Author and US books editor at The Spectator, who's written a lot in this area as well. Still curious, one female in jail. Where are all of the others? How do you get beyond the photoshopping and the innuendo and people who rang a hotline and left a voicemail saying, you know, Donald Trump touched my knee, says Barry in Wigan. I don't know, you know, whatever is on there, because there's so much, 3 million bits of information. And that was just the last couple of days. That doesn't include all the other information that has come out as well. What you really want is to get to the end of this and go, right, here's dozens, possibly more, victims who were without doubt abused. And here's dozens of men who abused them. You want to see that list of faces, because it seems extraordinary that after so many years, when did Epstein die, 2018 or something? Then here we are, over half a decade later, moving towards a decade later, as one female in jail. That doesn't seem like justice to me. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
The countdown is on and the window is about to slam shut. Transfer deadline day is here again and the football world means business. We'll bring you the bargains, the whispers, every deal, every twist. Which superstar signing is about to shake this season to its core? The biggest breaking stories, and we bring them to you.
It's been that kind of bonkers window.
An unbelievable window.
This is Transfer Deadline Day. This is Talk Sport.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A lot of you requesting not to show the photo of Peter Mandelson in his underpants anymore. Apparently it's making people feel a bit bilious. Is there an Ofcom regulation about making people feel sick because you show a former cabinet minister in his pants? And yes, I don't know what sort of pants they are. Maybe his partner's 10 grand is in them, who knows? But they are white and we can't identify. I said Aldi at the beginning, that's as near as I'm going. They could be Aldi, might be a bit of Lidl in there. I'm not sure what they were. It could be a, sorry to do this here, it might even be a thong, some people have speculated. And you thought it'd put you off your lunch. That's your dinner and next day's breakfast gone as well. Dave's in Blackpool. On this grim story, Dave, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Great show as usual.
Thank you.
But I would just like to say, you got pictures of Andrew leaning over that girl, which is, bad. But you got Mandelson there in his underpants and all this and all the things that are coming out now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Epstein could provide young girls, why couldn't he provide young boys?
That is quite possible. People have speculated on that. Of course, there isn't any evidence for it, but that is absolutely a speculation. I wonder whether Mandelson was more about the money than anything else. I don't know why his partner needed £10,000 for an osteopath. But what sort of treatment do you get for 10 grand, by the way? They'd be snapping and bending you for years with that kind of money, wouldn't they?
What I think we need to concentrate on is getting Mandelson to America. Get Andrew afterwards, go for Mandelson now. He is so corrupt. He's so...
Well, he says it's not illegal, anything he's done. It's just not a good look. That seems to be the answer to many of these same stories, right?
Yeah, but 90% of the population now think differently.
Yeah, and I could get it, to be honest, Dave. If somebody said, look, I knew this bloke before we knew he was a wrong 'un, and then we found out he was a wrong 'un, so I had nothing more to do with him. That's fine. But that didn't happen. These people carried on being his friend when they knew he was a wrong un and they knew the kind of crimes that he was involved with.
I would like to know what he's got in his chest, because I think he's got a can of worms there.
Yeah, I think so. Dave, thank you very much indeed for that. We will never fully know what was going on in Epstein's world. You might wonder about Maxwell as well, because all of these stories, all of this speculation, she's there in a jail. I think that jail's in Florida now. And she literally knows which bits are true and which bits might not be true, or which bits have never even come up. It's kind of extraordinary that she is sitting on that much information. And they had an interview with her. It was the FBI went in a little while ago. They moved her from a slightly more serious prison, if that's the right word, into something, I think, more digestible if you're serving many years in jail. But nothing really came of that. Surely she's got every bit of information there. Jeremy is in Cornwall. Jeremy, what have you got for us? Hello.
Hello, all right?
Yeah.
It's just, it struck me as a little, not funny, ironic. We took the family took the grandchildren and my children. We all went to Euro Disney back in October.
Yep.
Flew over from Bristol Airport, got to Charles de Gaulle, got off the plane, went to immigration to have your passport through the machine, and the queue for all the British passports. It took us 2.5 hours to get through immigration in Paris. The EU line, it was empty. People were just walking through. It was taking that long that eventually the French officials got so embarrassed they started giving out bottles of drinking water.
Right.
The queue went on forever, and it was quite apparent that they're not particularly worried about who they let out, but they're not that particularly keen on letting the British in, it appeared.
Yeah.
Longer to queue to get through the airport than they did to queue to get on the rides at Disney.
Yeah. You see, now that tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it, about the sneaky French and their policies. But the wider point you make, Jeremy, is that getting into countries conventionally can be hard to do, but you could sail across on a rubber boat and you don't have to adhere to any rules and regulations.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's obviously, historically, if you ever renew your passport in this country, you have to send off your birth certificates or copies of your driving license and all the identity checks you have to scan in now to get to sort it out if you're a bona fide applicant, but it doesn't seem that. I was always brought up as a gentleman of maybe a little bit older vintage than yourself, but not far off, that we were always taught that the law should be applied without fear or favour. But
yeah, I think that's generally been the rule, hasn't it? And in this case, I mean, and it's interesting we're talking about two different stories here with Epstein and then the migrant crisis, but both go into a similar territory where conventional laws and standards are not applying in it for different reasons in either story. Jeremy, thank you very much indeed for that. I think that's with the Mandelson thing. I mean, he would have been absolutely high on the idea that he was staying at a billionaire's house. Only once in my life did I meet a billionaire, and it was. I mean, in many respects, it was just a bloke in a pretty tatty suit. I didn't really know much about him anyway, and it was very brief. But it was kind of, I thought, God, that's such a weird status to have, to be a billionaire. Now, when you're a billionaire like Epstein, say you're a bit of a mover and a shaker as well, you know people right at the very top, not just in this country, but in all countries around the world. So to be part of that inner circle, for people like Mandelson, would have been so seductive that any time you wanted, you could have just made a phone call, be flown if you'd asked nicely, I'm sure. But even if you'd paid yourself a nice business class or even first class flight to New York, ferried from there into the lap of luxury and opulence, and dining with Jeffrey, the billionaire who knows everyone. People like Mandelson, for all of their brilliance, politically, being a kind of an operator. And people would say, people that worked at the sort of Trevor Kavanaghs of this world, that have worked the Westminster beat in politics for so long. Everyone pretty much of that era that was following New Labour when Mandelson was around will all say the same thing. They've never met anyone quite as crafty and clever as Peter Mandelson. And yet, don't ask me how this happens. Someone like that doesn't spot all the bear traps that were laid out later on in his career. Well, in fact, some of it during his career, but certainly later on with this. Because simultaneously, they are brilliant. They are so switched on, so sharpened to events and possibilities and outcomes. Absolutely top of their tree. Little bleep goes off in their head because they can see the direction of travel and where this might land. No, we've got to stop that. So good at that. And yet it comes to this kind of stuff and they are Thicko McDougall. I mean, they are below somebody with almost no IQ. So isn't that amazing psychology? That you can be that good in that setting and utterly bloody hope. Most of us, if you booked a holiday, an Airbnb, and you ended up and someone said, oh, we can't, your Airbnb it's not available, there's been an overbooking, but we'll put you here, but it's a house of a convicted paedophile. You go, no thanks, mate. And that's without even knowing these. I mean, good Lord. 0344 499 1000. That's where you'll find us. Just gone 2:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 25 to 3. This one comes from Paul in Fife. He says, Ian, we should stop using the term migrant crisis. This is not a migrant crisis. There's always been migrants, legal and illegal. We always find people desperate to get to the UK for a life of benefits. The real crisis is a government crisis. This government could solve this whole nightmare tomorrow. Stop the boats, turn them around, arrest those who do not get past our borders and return from wherever they came from. The vast majority are coming from France. Under international law, they can be returned to the last country they exited before arriving here. Well, yes and no is I think the short answer to that, because every time I speak to a legal expert that says exactly what Paul just says, another legal expert goes, no, you can't just do that. You just literally can't do that. You tell me. Let's move to this story, which we had a little chat about at the beginning. A nationwide plan has revealed how the British countryside will be made less white as part of a diversity drive. This is a DEFRA-led nationwide plan aiming to make national landscapes less white, targeting areas including the Chilterns and the Cotswolds. David Bean is Parliamentary and Government Relations Manager with the Countryside Alliance. David, good... Oh, I can't believe you're a white bloke. Sorry, I've been given false information here. What's going on? Good afternoon to you.
I apologise, Ian.
I know, it's terrible. There's two of us as well, just to make it worse. Listen, I mean, this story sort of does pop up every now and again, doesn't it? It's not entirely new. I'm sure I remember a decade ago discussing this, and then it came up again, and here it is once more. What's happening?
Absolutely. Well, yes, it is a perennial story, and there are different variations on it too. Sometimes you get the countryside is too white. Other times you get the countryside is racist. The latter tends to come mostly from NGOs and academics rather than from government bodies. But it is of a piece, I think, with the sort of story that we're discussing today.
In terms of the reasons, because, you know, the instinctive part of me, I'd like to think, David, the intelligent part of me would just say, this is cobblers, can we please move on? But clearly those that are behind this and are driving this idea or this debate, clearly they have their own reasons for thinking there is something that needs addressing.
Well, I wouldn't think it's fair to say that there's absolutely nothing to this story. We need to start off from the perspective that accessibility is good for the countryside. Behind food and farming, tourism is probably one of the biggest sectors that the countryside has to fund its economy. But I think where they're getting it wrong is that there seems to be the idea that in order to make the countryside more attractive, we need to introduce all manner of diversity-related criteria to the way that things operate there. And it's just not true. You don't improve the attractiveness of the countryside by either attacking it or by seeking to change the fundamental aspects of what it's like to be there. People go to the countryside because they want to be in the countryside as it is. They don't want to see it to be made into some sort of amalgamation.
Well, indeed. I mean, if I'd come from, you know, I don't know, an African country as an obvious example, if I was on holiday and somebody said, oh, you want to go and check out Sevenoaks or the Cotswolds, or any of these places where there's quite a lot of parks and the like, frankly, I'd be disappointed if I didn't see what you see now, which is some old country houses, churches that are almost as old as planet Earth, and some nice sheep in a field, a farmer with a staff in his hand and a sheepdog, and, you know, loads of white people stuffed into a tavern drinking fine ale. I mean, that surely is the money shot if you're coming from elsewhere.
I would say so, yes, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned pubs in particular, because they were one area that in the reports that we've seen today have come under some scrutiny. It's been suggested rather ridiculously that particularly people from Islamic backgrounds are alienated by the idea of visiting the countryside, because the only place they're going to go for some respite is going to be a pub, which they don't want to do because those pubs serve alcohol. But that suggestion is just absurd on its face, and even a moment's thought would would tell you. I mean, are we honestly expected to believe that in an urban area, a South Asian restaurant run perhaps by a Pakistani or a Bangladeshi family is not welcoming to people from ethnic minorities because it might happen to serve a pint of Cobra beer to people with their curry if that's what they want? It's just nonsensical. So I think we do need to really ask for a bit of common sense to be applied in these cases. You're right, Ian. As I said earlier, people do go to the countryside partly because of the heritage of the place. They want to see it as it is, and they want perhaps to engage with the history of the countryside as well.
Well, you'd think so. I mean, that is absolutely part of it, and we really can't change that, even if somebody wanted to. So we're in this strange cul-de-sac yet again, and we will speak in 5 years' time, David, when this story, of course, will return. I can guarantee it. David Bean, thank you, Parliamentary and Government Relations Manager with the Countryside Alliance. Look, it's too easy, isn't it, to say, have you ever had anything so ridiculous in your life? And then, you know, the gammon start to get upset, and I'm, you know, apparently part of it. I'm ready and fuming I am, because they want to make it more welcoming. I don't know what the sort of the manoeuvres are meant to look like that you would do to address. I mean, if a group of, and they mention Muslims in particular, I don't understand what a coach full of Muslim visitors to the Cotswolds would be offended by. And my guess is they probably wouldn't. They would see it for what it is. They might not want to go to the pub, but we're not going to change that. Apparently, this issue that some people were scared of dogs was also put up. What, are we going to ban dogs now in the countryside? I mean, it is crackers, right? It's just, I always try to find a way into these stories, and even if you don't agree with it, you go, ah, right, okay. I still think it's nonsense, but I can see what they were thinking. Not only can I not see what they were thinking, I don't know why they had the necessity to want to try and think it in the first place. Did they walk around the countryside and observe people they hadn't seen? You know, we haven't seen many women in hijabs climbing the Pennines. Or what was it that? Or how did they get to this being a problem? And it sounds to me like it's a problem that they've sort of created, and I simply don't understand why. I can't imagine someone going to, I don't know, India, and the Indians going, we've got to make this place less Indian. I mean, if you see, got that flipping Taj Mahal thing, we're not that carbuncle down by 6 o'clock. The marble menace. Get it down, boys. Bring in those big balls that, you know, so it's not a Mandelson thing again, those things that they throw at buildings to knock down the walls. That's better, look. You wouldn't even know this was India, would you, anymore? No, I came here because it's India. I want to see this stuff. Let's go to Phil in Hertfordshire. Back to that migrant issue and housing, Phil. What have you got for us? Hi.
Ian, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah, just a bit of information that we experienced, and it was really regarding my daughter. We put her on she put herself on the housing list about 5 years ago. Local authority, when we applied, how long to wait? Oh, look, forget about it. At least 5-6 years. That's what we were told. Fine, fair enough. You get on with life. About a year ago, she said, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to check, see what's going on." So she went on the website. She'd been removed.
Really?
So she'd been removed. Yeah, it gets better. So we've done a little bit of digging, phoned up the local authority. Oh yeah, well, she didn't respond to an email that we sent out asking if she wants to stay on the list. Well, hang about. What do you mean? Yeah, we sent her an email. Do you want to stay on the list? Well, if I would have thought if it was that important, it would have either A, got a phone call, or B, a letter. Yeah. So we tried looking for this email. We could not find any email from the local authority that we're in. So we rang them back up. Oh no, it's a different email. Well, what is it? Right, this is the email address. Do not reply at lowcatamount.com.
Right.
We found it in the junk. When you click on it, there's the link to the local authority.
Wow.
We got in touch with our local councillor. He agreed, Lib Dem guy. He was very, very good. He said it's very misleading. So he got in touch with them. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. So what's you got to do? Reapply.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, reapply. Honestly, I've got all the emails still, Ian.
What kind of... Not just... I mean, it's beyond idiocy, isn't it? It's just deeply unpleasant. It's unkind. It's not fair. So what kind of idiot would go, oh, look, there's clearly been an error here. We will just put that person back on the list to where they would have been at this stage?
Exactly.
Anyone with a scintilla of intelligence would have done that.
Exactly. But they didn't, and they flatly refused, and they even refused with the councillor. But the councillor said, well, look, what they're going to do, they do admit it might be a bit misleading, so they're going to change it. So anyway, we've done the application again. She's gotten again. She's got no chance now. She's got a 10, 15-year wait. Wow. And guess what the email was from with confirmation?
Oh, not the same address.
Same address.
If you get something that says do not reply, I mean, the clue is in the we all get them from different companies that are sending you an invoice or a whatever or an update, and it says do not reply, so you know that you wouldn't reply to it. And you've got a big chance of it getting junked, which I would imagine they probably know, Phil.
Of course they do. It's totally unfair, Ian. And there's people that I do know on other local authorities that have experienced similar. Some of them have been removed because they're earning too much money. And the attitude is, well, you can go out and rent somewhere then, can't you, privately? It seems to me there is selective removal from the housing lists, the social housing.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly, Ian, say why they're doing it.
No, nothing to do with names or anything like that.
Surely, I possibly couldn't say why they're doing it, but that is what I wanted to share. So anybody that's got any... they know anybody on a waiting list,
check it.
Please check your do not reply emails.
Yeah, good advice. That is just, it's nasty apart from anything else. Phil, thank you for that. That is good advice. But what a terrible situation to be taken off the list. And we sent you an email with an iffy email address that stands a good chance of getting junked, and even if it didn't, you might see it in your inbox and it says do not reply, so it wouldn't really be something you were going to... I mean, all of it. Earlier today, a former Labour MP was arrested for a second time on suspicion of a string of sexual offences. This was Independent MP Dan Norris said sexual offence allegations made against him are untrue. He said, I vigorously and entirely deny the serious allegation made against me. That is the latest we have for you. Independent MP Dan Norris denying the serious allegation made against him after an arrest earlier today. We're going to pause momentarily. We're back in a couple of moments. Great calls coming in from you. We've got the countryside. Oh, this from Samantha. The countryside is too white and there are too many farmers and dogs and trees and animals. It's disgusting. It really is disgusting. Too white. You really are living in an upside down world. And people go, why do we want to change a government? And I don't mean specifically, this isn't Keir Starmer's idea, or who was the bloke before Starmer? Rishi Sunak. Wasn't his idea, wasn't Liz Truss or Boris Johnson's. But these things come up from time to time, and you just want a world where somebody calls it out and goes, sorry, whatever body is dealing with this, get in the bin, you're not wanted around here, you're surplus to requirements. We've got the voice of doom, something like day 7 or 8 coming up in a couple of moments, and of course your calls and comments as well. It's 10 to 3. This is Talk.
I wrote and edited the very first item, I think in June 1997, about Peter Mandelson. How on earth does an MP, as he was then, on only £45,000 a year, manage to afford a basically 450 grand property in Notting Hill? He lied to the editor of the Evening Standard and told him it was about his mum had left him money. Turns out it was a loan from another member of the cabinet, Geoffrey Robertson. Both men were forced out. He was forced out again over money and relationships with billionaire Indian brothers. Yeah. And then forced out of the US ambassador role.
Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
We've got the voice of doom. For those who don't know, this is the mystery voice bit where you have to... It's political, so you've got to identify somebody who is or was a politician. Young, old, dead or alive, left wing, right wing, white or black, or brown. Could be anybody. Simple question. Who is this?
This is your chance.
Any ideas? 87222. Don't phone, just message. 87222 if you know who this is.
This is your chance.
So this is day 8 of the Voice of Doom. Is it day 8? Day 8. Day 8 of the Voice of Doom. If you think you know and we get a right answer, we reveal all after the news at 3 o'clock. If we don't, it rolls over to, you've guessed it, Day 9. Jill is in East Sussex, which is a very sort of racist county in many respects, Jill, because, of course, I know the area well. I live in West Kent, so we're almost neighbours in that respect. A lot of woodland, a lot of countryside, some lovely places. What kind of life are you living over there?
Oh, Ian, you've caught me out. There you are. Yes, well, of course, I'm one of the awful, terrible rural people who happen to live and we haven't work on a farm, you know, dairy cows and sheep and all that sort of thing. And if life wasn't depressing enough, then we get this story coming out. About
which is bizarre, by the way. You mentioned cows that are both black and white, so, you know, you'd have thought that would tick a box.
I used to...
Or brown.
I used to say we've got black cows, we've got white cows, we've got black and white cows. Yeah. When I used to write a lot of stuff, I did a lot in the early noughties at high level. When I say high level, I sat with the Labour ministers of the day, because that was the Labour government in those days. Yep. I've sat down with Margaret Beckett and had a reasonable conversation with her a few times. She was quite helpful with me.
She liked the countryside, didn't she? Because she used to go off in a caravan.
She was, and Leo, bless him, her husband, he was actually an absolute darling. Oh. I also had the sad misfortune, I have to say it like this, I was invited to go and sit and talk with David Lammy because he was culture.
Well, there's no need to start swearing on the radio, Jill, honestly.
So hard work, I can't tell you about culture. But the serious point to this was I was doing a lot of my work looking at this problem with how could you integrate communities of the minority ethnic, whether they were Asian or they were the Black African community or Western Caribbean, to bring them into the countryside and try and do this. That was what I was well known for. I actually went the other way. I actually went from rural Sussex up to Bradford to the Mellor up there to go and see what it was about. And I went, and I went into the restaurants. And I ran conferences, I ran seminars to try and see if we could sort of draw people together to do this. I did growing projects in food and all that and everything. But at the end of the day, the thing is, they're not that interested. There's a few who will always stand up and speak up and complain. But at the end of the day, communities tend to stay within their communities. And this is half the problem. And what was quite funny, you were saying, what if a coach of Muslims came out in the countryside? And I was just laughing. I shouldn't laugh, but I could just see them there in their white flowing robes and white trousers and open-toed sandals standing in the middle of the field with a cow pat and loads of sheep, around.
Glad you said sheep.
It's because it's not.
So it's cult. There's a cult. There is a genuine kind of culture clash. Is that what you're saying, or is it just
there is? There are some people who really want to do that, and that's actually fine.
And I'm pretty sure lots of Muslims over the years go to the countryside, but it just seems to be disproportionately not something that most Muslims would do.
Exactly. And actually, when you talk about the culture, that was it a week or so ago, it was noted that some teenagers rescued some people from the top of a mountain because they were there
wearing trainers and stuff,
Exactly. And that's it. And, you have to understand what the rural is about, and you come out, you dress for it, and you're prepared for it.
Would it be fair to say, Jill, sorry to interject, would it be fair to say that, because I often feel a lot of these stories are are more about class than race. Would it be fair to say that lots of working class people who live in inner cities also don't visit the countryside?
Yes, and one of the reasons is because to get into the countryside nowadays, you actually need your own transport, because the train may go to somewhere, but it won't get you right into the rural.
True.
You need a bus. Guess what? We have one bus a week in our village, I think, or we have the flexi bus now. There is not this transport.
Did you say the sexy bus?
The flexi.
Oh, the flexi bus. I was going to say.
The kind of two buses you ring them.
Where do we book?
How long to pick you up? But it's true, so it's very difficult. So I'm really glad that the Cotswolds are going to try and do something. I think there's nothing wrong with trying to do it, but they're just rehashing this story time and time again. The countryside is open if you want to come here and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who aren't interested, and a lot of people in the countryside who really have got no interest in even going on a train to London. It works both ways. It's just how it is. I've met some fabulous people. I used to go to the Lambeth Country Show, full of the West Indian community. Oh my God, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
But not everybody is like that.
That's true.
Trust me, we are welcoming. We would like to see people, but you've got to want to come here in the first place.
What part of East Sussex are you in, Jill? You don't have to specifically identify your village.
I'm Downing 1066 country.
Oh, are you really? Ah.
Yeah, the High Weald. Yeah,
that's a battle
fabulous.
to get to, isn't it? Boom, boom.
Very funny.
It's my best dad joke. My best dad joke. All right, listen, love it. Jill, thank you very much indeed. Jill in East Sussex, who knows the terrain well because she lives it. The more I think about it, there are so many areas when we've had over the years gone how many debates about why they're not more non-white. First, it was more women on boards. Company boards of directors and things like that, more non-white people. But actually the question, I think, was largely about class, but it never really got a look in because you wouldn't find black, white or brown, anyone of that class group. So there was the real issue that was stopping people. It's one of those things in the Venn diagram when people bang on about race. I genuinely believe this. So often it's a class-based dilemma or conundrum that's being talked about. We'll take some more calls on that as well. 0344 499 1000. You leave a voice note there as well if you want to. We've also got coming up the voice of doom. Will we finally get a winner? If you can tell us who this is.
This is your chance.
Any idea? 87222. I'm sort of hopeful that right after the news, someone is going to got that absolutely bang on. We'll reveal all after the headlines. More to come from you. Loads of great guests. It's 3 o'clock on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Chocker on the phones, loads of subjects here. Downing Street have said Keir Starmer believes Lord Mandelson should now not be a member of the House of Lords. He's asked the Cabinet Secretary to urgently review all available information, contact between the former minister and Jeffrey Epstein. Mr Starmer, I should remind you, is the man that literally appointed him to be the ambassador to the United States. But he knew nothing himself, apparently. Also, the Prime Minister facing fresh calls from Labour MPs to stop asylum seekers being housed in new council houses. Perfectly reasonable request. But when Labour backbenchers start to get angry, maybe the PM will listen. Could another U-turn be coming for Keir Starmer? And a new front is opening up in the battle against litter, with a group of pioneering councils using dashcam footage and AI-powered cameras to hit vehicle owners with large fines. Could that work? 0344 499 1000. It's just interesting. Almost the most futile, bizarre thing to me is people who drop litter. I just can't get my head around it. It's clearly disgusting. It's clearly, it's socially unacceptable. You don't even need to have been told that as a child. That you need no education to know that littering is not a good thing to do. Is it more troubling when people lob stuff out of a car? I think that's pretty grim. It almost takes more choreography. You could not be accused of accidentally dropping something if you're going to lob several Happy Meals out the passenger side of your Ford Fiesta. That's so deliberate. That you could, oh, well, sorry, I just accidentally opened my window and lobbed the contents of 6 people's meal outside. You can't. So anything you can do to catch these tow rags has got to be a good thing, right? 0344 499 1000. Now, a study has revealed how universal credit claimants have been receiving over $10 billion in hidden benefits. Now, this, of course, is on top of what is a £100 billion national bill. The think tank Onwards said universal credits claimants can receive lots of other benefits on top of their standard payments. What is going on here? Let's speak with Caroline Elsom, head of Reshaping the State Onward, Reshaping the State Onward, the think tank that has released this study. Good afternoon to you, Caroline. Nice to have you with us. Look,
afternoon.
I don't know how many benefits there are out there altogether. There's dozens and dozens, and it is quite interesting. I'm sure you're more than aware of this than I am. But often if you go to government websites, there's lots of information that say, are you not claiming your correct benefit? You know, you could be getting this, you could be getting that. At a time when simultaneously the government are saying, look, we want to be really careful with benefits. I'm not suggesting that everybody who applies shouldn't get it, but it is rather interesting. We do have a curious system, and now we hear today from the good work that you guys have done that there actually, even if you get a certain benefit, there are other benefits within the benefit.
Yes, exactly. And as you've outlined, the eye-watering cost of the total benefits bill is one thing, but there are so many additional benefits now. My study identified over 20 different schemes for which people who are already on universal credit can get additional payments, whether that's in the form of free school meals, energy bill rebates, broadband social tariff, water bill caps, prescription fees. They can get them waived as well. There are exemptions and freebies everywhere for people who are already in receipt of benefits which are meant to cover their essential daily living costs. Yeah. And these are a class of benefits called passported benefits. Some of them, as you say, are very well signposted on the government website, but a lot of them aren't. And so what this system creates is where those who are best able to navigate the system can get thousands of pounds in extra support, but some of those who might be least aware or least capable of applying to all of these different schemes are left without support that they might really need.
You know this territory well. You were a former advisor as well at the Department of Work and Pensions. I often wonder, I was thinking about it this morning when I heard the current Secretary of State talking about, you know, there's a fork in the road and I'm determined to, a load of old cliches being wheeled out about, you know, I'm going to solve it this way. And I'm sure with good intention. I don't dispute that anyone who gets the world's most impossible job, when they go in, like all areas of government, as you well know, Caroline, people do go in, left or right, with intention. I want to solve this problem. And then, of course, you're suddenly bombarded with a load of reality checks and permanent secretaries that go, no, there's nothing you can do about that, sunshine, for whatever spurious reason that might be. But I would imagine that this area of, you know, who gets what is fair, what is not fair, what is an overpayment, what does an underpayment look like, this must have been an hourly... You could have had meetings every minute on this stuff, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't downplay just what a tough job the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions has. I know just how difficult it is, having been an advisor there for a long time. But the point of the report is to highlight that actually so many levers of the welfare state are no longer in the control of the Department for Work and Pensions. Almost every domestic policy department is now running their own poverty alleviation scheme in a piecemeal and uncoordinated way. They all have different income thresholds, they're uprated at different levels, there are different cash amounts. There is no central overall coordination to add these all up and to signpost people to what they are or aren't entitled to, depending on their family circumstances. So it's become a totally impossible task. And it's actually what makes the recent reporting that Labour are ruling out any big welfare legislation, at least for the next year, so disappointing, because now is precisely the time to be doing that hard reset of the welfare system to return to the original intent of universal credit, which was always meant to be a simpler, smoother system whereby you get all of these previous legacy schemes rolled into one simplified payment, so you know what you get and you can budget for your household accordingly. So really, now is the time to be doing that reset, not to be shying away from doing those big and much needed benefit reforms. We were sort of, you know, I sensed that we were starting to get there. You know, when Ian Duncan Smith spoke a lot about this in opposition, he did some incredible work. And I can remember Ian Duncan Smith. I always thought the BBC used to stick him on Question Time, thinking, you know, the audience are going to start booing him. In fact, I remember him. He was once on you know, they do that annoying children's questions or schools Question Time, which frankly should be illegal because it's just infuriating to watch. And I remember Ian was on there as a panellist. And I'm sure a producer thought, yeah, we'll get the old Tory on and they're going to boo the life out of him. He got more cheers and rounds of applause for what he was saying. It was all just common sense stuff, of course. Get into government, start to make some kind of headway on this. And I'm sensing, Caroline, that in the last couple of years, things have gone backwards. Would that be fair? Yes, exactly. I mean, universal credit was always, as Ian Duncan Smith intended, was always meant to be this simpler, fairer system. Yeah. And it was explicit in the very foundational documents of universal credit that it would roll all of these passported benefits, some of which had been around for years, for as long as the welfare state itself, things like free school meals, things like free prescriptions, legal aid, they've been around for a long time. Universal credit was always meant to roll all of these benefits into the core payments. But the welfare reform came in 2012, it's now 2026. And universal credit is still not fully rolled out. We still have the legacy benefit system dishing out benefits to some claimants. The end is in sight. I think the final people are due to be migrated off universal credit in 2029. So the end of the legacy system is coming this Parliament, which is why now is the time to be preparing for those really big changes that are necessary to return to the original intent of universal credit, to make it work as it was always meant to consolidate all of these piecemeal schemes that are spread all across government and put them all back into that single payment. And in fact, the Labour government are making the problem worse in the last couple of years. So from this year, free school meals are expanding to all families on universal credit. The warm home discount is expanding to all families on universal credit, regardless of whether you have a very energy efficient home. Anybody on universal credit will now be entitled to a £150 rebate every winter off their fuel bills, which happens automatically. So the system is growing at a time when it should be consolidating back into the system.
Yeah, I was going to, because there's two things going on here, isn't there? There's obviously coming up with something that logistically is smoother, more understandable and makes sense, so you can imagine it in your head, right? This is the benefit, this is what it does, and this is who it's for. But not only is it still fairly convoluted, but it's expanded beyond recognition in terms of the number of people claiming it, which raises the other issue about the cost of these benefits. Now, it may well be that, if everybody that's on universal credit needs to be on it, and I, as a taxpayer, I think most people have no problem with taxes going to people who genuinely need some assistance. That's called a civilised country. However, there's another equation you have to do. Can we afford it going forward? Is it even sustainable? And this is just one benefit. We talked last week about the increase in that benefit just in the last year. It's off the scale.
Well, exactly. And until the government is fully accounting for all of these additional benefits, when they're assessing the size of the overall benefits bill, then they are missing the really key interaction between being entitled to all of these additional benefits and the incentives to work. And because most of these aren't even counted in poverty statistics, let alone being properly evaluated within government or externally, because there is so little data available, and until things are properly counted and measured and evaluated to see whether these schemes are working, that it makes this £10 billion cost all the worse. And the government shouldn't kid themselves that regulating private companies to provide parts of the welfare state through these energy bill rebates, through social tariffs, through water bill caps. This isn't free money just because it's not coming out directly from taxpayers. It's being added to consumer bills, so everybody is paying for it. There is no such thing as a free lunch in any of this world. Somebody is paying for it. Yeah. And until this system can be brought together in a simplified way, there is no way of properly accounting for and then controlling the levers of the benefit system to have the intended outcome, to make it make sense for people to increase their income by taking on more hours, by starting work, by getting promoted, and to have that smooth path off into financial independence from the state.
Indeed. Caroline, very thorough stuff. Thank you very much for speaking with us. Caroline Elsom, she's from the think tank Onward, and she's head of Reshaping the State, which is the paper that has revealed these extra benefits that are hidden within universal credit, and in some cases clearly not even required, but they are there to be claimed. It just goes back to the question that we looked at last week in terms of this one particular benefit, the amount of claimants who are not even required to look for work because of illness-based issues, mostly mental health increases. But this is a kind of almost another layer of the whole thing. I don't know what's going to happen. It's almost like we're on a kind of weird countdown on this whole benefit welfare system. With respect to every single person who desperately needs help, and I'll say it for the 1000th time, most people on benefits do need the help, and most people who pay their taxes understand that. That doesn't solve the irredeemable reality that these are not sustainable. That's just a fact, regardless of who you are. Michael's in Birmingham. Michael, Peter Mandelson back on the agenda. What do you think? Hi.
Oh, absolutely fantastic, pure comedy gold. Can't get enough of it. I don't want him out of the Labour Party. I want him back in it, and the higher the office, the better.
Yeah, that's a good point, because at some point he's going to stand on another bear trap, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes in threes, doesn't it? There's been the Notting Hill incident, and now this in these shreddies. I mean, what's going on in that photo? I don't get it. Who's taking the photo?
Well, that's the thing. Every one of these kind of supposed either rich or powerful people, or people who like to be surrounded by rich and powerful people, was sort of. There was forever a photographer in the bloody room. Wouldn't you at some point have gone, mate, can you stop following me?
Well, I mean, I hope he's been long lens, because that makes it even funnier. But I mean, he's standing there. It's so bizarre. There's it looks like a very earnest serious business meeting. He's on some sort of iPad, and there's the assistant who herself is in a dressing gown, and he's standing there with no trousers on, which is it's just fantastic stuff. You know, keep him in there. I've no idea what he's doing or why, but we need more people like him in Labour.
Could it be? Do you think because he is a gay man that he thought it's? I've spoken to female mates about this. There's a kind of, I'm sure small, but there's a percentage of gay men that seem to think, you know, that it's kind of like you can do things that a straight man wouldn't get away with, you know, particularly in some bars or clubs where you can just sort of go in for a snog or grab someone's bum and go, hey, it's fine, I'm gay. You know, it's not fine, by the way. It's nothing. Do you think it's in that ballpark that he thought, I can walk around in my undercrackers because I'm gay? I'm allowed to do that. And even though there's a young girl standing next to me, it's all right because I'm gay. It's like, I don't think that's okay. Unless it's his mate. I don't know. Maybe it's one of his best mates. Who knows? And they don't care, you know.
I mean, I don't know what's going through his mind, whether it's, you know, to do with his sexuality or not. But I mean, it just seems like it's an absolutely bizarre photo, and it looks like a complete setup. It doesn't even look like he's aware of it. But I just say keep him, because we need more Labour politicians like him. Get them out for what they are. You know, they like to walk around in their underpants and what looks like a very cheap T-shirt too. You think with all his cash he'd get a designer one.
I know, yeah, he needs something better than that, doesn't he? I mean, he might have been just getting ready to go out for the evening, I don't know, and, you know, she's an assistant of some sort. I'm looking at the image now. As you say, he's got his iPad open. Maybe they're picking a restaurant to go to. Who knows? It's just a bit weird, isn't it?
Well, but it's never a good time, you know, in a man's dressing routine. That particular moment where you're looking like that before you get the trousers on, unless you're particularly ripped and athletic. You know, if you're an ordinary guy like me. That's always an uncomfortable moment, even with somebody you've been familiar with.
Yeah, but you know what? There is, and I've talked about this before, Michael, you know that thing in gym changing rooms or swimming changing rooms where the last thing a bloke sticks on are his pants for some reason. It's almost like he's on some kind of, like, there's a magnetic force stopping him from grabbing it. It's like he's got his socks on, he's got his shirt on, he's done his tie, he's got a hat on. Stick your bloody pants on, mate. And he's walking around like nobody cares, and he's got a hairdryer and he's shoving it up his bloody jacksie to dry himself. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Just stick your pants on. Maybe Mandelson is one of them.
Well, yeah, he's many things, but it's a great shot. I mean, you know, I think I'll write to him giving some fashion advice. If you're going to walk around, you know, with nothing on below the waistline, at least make a towel. That looks slightly better. But the underpants is fantastic. More of that, please. And please don't hesitate to show that photo. It's a a listener's request. I can't get enough of it.
There you go, Mike.
In an amusing way.
Michael, you've been brilliant. Thank you very much. Michael in Birmingham. Yeah, put him back in the cabinet. See what Mandelson does next. Is a breathtaking bit of psychology that someone so, as I said in the last hour, someone so brilliant and sharp and on the ball politically. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows the moves to make. This guy could play political chess like few others. Admired across party lines for his incredible political acumen. He was just absolutely, he was on manoeuvres 24/7 and hardly ever got it wrong until it came to his personal life, where he always got it wrong. Lost his job in the cabinet a couple of times, mucked it up in so many different areas. Ambassador role, soon rumbled. Now he's caught having a little widdly the other day, wasn't he, in the street? I don't know when that picture was taken. And there he is again in his underpants. And now we hear all sorts of other stories about information he might have been sharing, according to the Telegraph. And Keir Starmer himself is saying this man should not be in the House of Lords, even though he's a mate of Keir Starmer's and has advised or spoken to Keir Starmer on a number of occasions, and Keir Starmer appointed him literally as the ambassador. Can't make it up. Just before we pause, and we are going to be back with more of your calls in just a second. We've got so many issues here. Let's do the voice of doom, the mystery voice of a political nature. Have we got a winner? Here's the voice.
This is your chance.
I should have said at the beginning, it's not Rupert Lowe, because every day, like so many people guess Rupert Lowe. It's not Rupert Lowe. Tom Tugendhat, no. Ian Duncan Smith, no. Jeremy Brown, no. Daniel Kaczynski. He was a Tory MP. What happened to him? I'm assuming he lost his seat at the last election. David Mellon, no. Michael Portillo, no. Boris Johnson, it is not. Gandhi, it is not. Damien Green, no. Tony Blair, no. We haven't got a winner. It rolls over to tomorrow, to day 9. We'll go to your calls in a couple of moments. Lines are open, 3:20. This is Talk.
Does Keir Starmer have blood on his hands?
Yes, he does. I hope he lives with that for the rest of his life. It's not just my child he's taken away. These poor innocent children that are getting raped daily, may I add. These poor women like Rhiannon that are getting murdered. He and all the other people that agree with this, they have those people's blood on their hands.
29 years, is that enough?
Nothing will ever be enough.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very strange. 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. Let's go back to your calls and comments. This comes from Brad, who says the countryside is there for heaven's sake. Nobody is preventing anyone, ethnic minorities or discouraging them. Why do these overpaid interfering politicians have to try and force people? My adult kids are white. My son absolutely loves country pursuits, but my daughter hates the country. Where's the problem? I can tell you, Brad, you have too many white kids. That's quite racist, frankly. Brad, can we report Brad to Ofcom, please? Who's... I'm told we can do that, so sorry, Brad. Tanya in London says, I think there is a reverse snobbery when it comes to countryside. Country folk are ridiculed for wearing their Barber jackets, le chameau wellies and flat caps, but this is totally fine to take the mickey out of that stereotype. Also, can I complain that London isn't white enough? I think London's too white, frankly. Have you been there recently? Have you been to London? Have a little look around. There's loads of little whiteys mooching around the place, thinking they own the gaff. Yeah, we need to change that as well. Let's go back to your calls. Jack's in Devon on benefits. Jack, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hello, mate. How are you going?
Good, yeah. What's happening?
Well, I'm really annoyed about all these idiots who are on the benefits who say they're suffering with anxiety and stress. I've actually suffered properly with it, to the point I actually I had a nervous breakdown, which devastated my friend who was on the end of the phone. It was just a random call saying I can't get over what happened last time, and suddenly I just broke. My wife was in tears because she's never seen me like that before. And it took me 3 months, basically. Fortunately, the job carried on paying me. I forked out 500 to 600 quid with counselling because the NHS were going to delay my recovery by about 3 months before I even got any treatment, so I went private. And, when I started speaking to the counsellor, it made it very clear that I didn't really realise that, I was suffering with stress and anxiety. I was having like attacks first thing in the morning before I went to work. I was being sick, which I couldn't understand. And then on the way to work, my chest was tightening to the point I thought, Jesus, am I having a heart attack?
Yeah.
And I went back to, I went to the doctors and they said, no, your heart's fine, etc. I went, oh, for Christ's sake, Neil, crack on. And then suddenly this happened, and then I thought, But then as it was explained to me by the counsellor, she turned around and said, this is anxiety, depression, and I was told I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm actually embarrassed with that because I've never been in the armed forces.
What was the... I mean, you don't have to give the details, Jack, but what was the sort of vague catalyst behind it?
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to hear you.
Yeah, you don't have to go into details, but what was the sort of reasoning behind why you had this breakdown? Do you know? Was it a specific event?
It was just after COVID, and there was about 4 or 5 events that built up to it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'll give you an example.
Perfect storm, almost.
I couldn't... I could never sleep. I really struggled with sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you just think, crack on, and that's what I did. I cracked on.
Yeah.
But at no point did I go on benefits. No point. I was just so determined to get back to work.
Yeah.
And I'm still back at work. I'm now back at work after... after, I think, a month. I went back to work, and something happened, and I was a shaking wreck. And I was sent straight home. So obviously I went back too early. But
it's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't mean this in a kind of cheap sense, but it's just bizarre what the body does, right? When something, your brain is telling your body that, you've got to stop doing whatever you're doing and you're going through something, I mean, you must have found that as scary as it was and as annoying as it was and all that goes with it. You must have thought, how strange is this, that suddenly out of nowhere my body's reacting to something and I'm not sure what.
Yeah, the counsellor explained it to me, but basically it's like a cup, and you deal with situations in your life, but you've got a cup, and it sort of fills up, then drops down. As you get stressed, then you sleep, and you speak, and you talk to your friends, and then you calm down. But apparently I was unable to calm down. Sleep is a thing. The most important thing is sleep. And I couldn't sleep, so I couldn't turn off. It was a really weird treatment where basically what the counsellor tried to do, amazing woman, Jackie her name was, and all she did was made me follow her fingers as we discussed things that had happened to me. And I kept looking left, right, up, down. But this is what happens when you're in a deep sleep. This is what your eyes do. I don't know if you've ever seen that with your partner perhaps or whatever, but that's what your brain does. Your brain is trying to repair itself, and mine wasn't.
And then every now and again the cup overflows, right?
Basically, yes, the cup overflows, and you have a breakdown.
How are you doing now, Jack?
Yeah, I'm fine. I had, what's it, 3 months of counselling. I'm on a bit of medication, which I'm hoping to cut down.
Sure.
I'm fortunate now. I'm semi-retired now. The job is quite stressful, but I'm actually enjoying it again. But it's just for that one occasion I broke. And,
no, I get it. So when you hear somebody saying they can't go to work because they're feeling anxious, I can imagine when you've been through all of that, that your eyes kind of widen, and you probably feel, a certain amount of anger towards what people have redefined as a mental health problem, when in fact it's just a thing called life where you're having a bad day. I've got to move, Jack. Thank you very much. Good luck with the continuing recovery as well. Thank you. Jack in Devon. Jill is in Cornwall. Back to Epstein and Mandelson. What's going on, Jill? Hello.
Gosh, good morning to you. Honestly, I'm sick of hearing about these people. I really am. He was given a peerage by Tony Blair, and anyone within that sort of peerage radius sort of thing now will be feeling as if, they're tarred with the same brush. He should not be allowed. He should not be allowed to give up the things that he was given or donate. He should be punished for the fact that he has mixed with people that have basically caused awful problems to, other people.
Yeah. And of course, sitting in the House of Lords, he's a lawmaker, and that cannot be the case when you have openly admitted that your sense of judgment is so far out of reality that you can spend time and communicate with a convicted paedophile after you've found out about their proclivities.
Exactly, and we have a situation now where we have so many politicians and chief of police and goodness knows what that have mixed and done the wrong thing. And I mean, it's like the chief of police chap that walked away with a retirement and obviously some sort of financial benefit when really he should have been prosecuted. And now we're getting situations with, like Mandelson, where he's mixed with the type of people that you wouldn't want to be seen with. And he's being given the option to walk away from.
Yeah.
And really, we should be taking these things away from you.
Yeah, well, I'm told there's a protocol you've got to go through to get somebody out of the House of Lords, but, hopefully it happens within the next 28 minutes, Jill, because I did say he should be gone by 4 o'clock, and we've got 28 minutes left. I'm never, ever wrong on my predictions, but I've got apart from the last one, I've got a funny feeling he might still be there. But this time tomorrow, who knows? Jill, I've got to move. Thank you very much indeed for that. Paul in York says, good afternoon. Reference the Epstein files. It's impossible. The royal family, the Met, prime ministers and close protection officers didn't know what Andrew was up to for many years in his trade ambassador role. They're all complicit. The problem was he probably wasn't breaking the law in the conventional sense, and I understand the Virginia Giuffre allegations when I think she was meant to be 17, which would have been illegal in New York. So yes, okay, he's breaking the law in that sense. In the UK, that wouldn't have been breaking the law, even though you could say he's a dirty old goat because the age gap is so wide. You could put several buses in there, for goodness sake. So, you can party, you can be a bit disgusting, you can be have this insatiable appetite for a certain type and all the rest of it, but you might not have broken any laws. And, if you're a protection officer or a personal assistant, or you work in a government department where you know the kind of movements of some of these people, you might not like it, you might judge it, but has somebody literally broken the law? I do think in this case, he broke a law of, frankly, a sort of unwritten rule, if you like, of who he was hanging around with, while continuing to be up close and personal to politicians. That, to me, is a compromise. 0344 499 1000, 25 to 4. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. This one comes in from Taff in Dover. I'm in Dover and often go up to the cliffs. I meet people of all races while I'm up there. How do people who come up with this end up in positions of power? Says Taff in Dover. This is reference to the story that the countryside is yet again racist, or they want to make it less white. I honestly don't know where to start in trying to answer this crock of nonsense. Now, littering is something we talk about from time to time, and now drivers are being asked to share dash cam video of other motorists littering with a view to try and nab some of these filthy pests. Let's speak to Montgomery Tom's freedom campaigner, often helps us out with the odd story or two. Montgomery, afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
I mean, I'm stuck on this because, yes, I do, have such a dismal view of people who drop litter. It seems the most extraordinary almost effort to drop litter, particularly if you're throwing it out of a car. It's like, you just leave it there, take it home, stick it in a bin. But this is about getting people to, submit their dash cam footage, not so you can watch hilarious hours of someone driving like an idiot, but so you can capture them dropping litter. Good idea or bad idea?
Bad idea. I mean, people know my opinions regarding surveillance and the notion of a slippery slope, and how this constant encouragement to sort of watch one another, surveil one another, record one another, it's deeply concerning. And it always starts with something kind of virtuous, we need to stop littering, which of course is an issue. And to people that litter, it's just blatantly just grim and... Quite honestly, I've always found it quite bizarre. Just use a bin.
It's really bizarre. It's very bizarre to see somebody do it.
But what it sort of reminds me of, those that have read Orwell 1984, is kind of like the notion of like junior spies, using children to snitch on their parents for thought crimes. And we talk about community and we talk about the importance of community, but you're encouraging local communities to record one another, sort of snitch on one another. So there's also an element of that. I think it's quite counterintuitive, actually. You're asking local communities and dash cam footage and all these to watch your neighbours and all these things and watch out for what's going on. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the welfare state as it currently is and in general, and I think the further we are away from a welfare state, the better. But the reason I bring that up is, Rupert Lowe often references this. People that have time on their hands, people that, are using the welfare state and not working, I think also should be encouraged to go out, do litter picking, clean up the streets. Why do we need to look to the states or to surveillance to pick on these people? Why can't we, come together and find the best structure to look after our local communities? It seems every single option gets thrown out the window and people jump straight to, let's just track and watch and monitor everyone else. I just don't think it's right, and I think it's a slippery slope. I don't think all things have been considered. And it just feeds into the same idea of watching and monitoring all the time. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, well, Buckinghamshire, they've got their own campaign. It's called, maybe you can help me out on this, it's called For Buck's Sake. Now, I understand what the word buck is replacing the other word, but I don't understand the have I missed something there? I mean, isn't a buck a deer?
I imagine potentially it's referring to money. I don't know.
Oh, is it money? Yeah, for buck's sake.
Bucks.
I don't know. It's like apparently they're really happy with their campaign. For buck's sake, they don't need the likes of me and you taking the pee out of them, to be honest. But let's do it. For Buck's Sake has already fined all manner of people. They've issued 154 notices since April last year, totalling 77,000 quid, 67 paid, most others in recovery.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't think they're in recovery because of the fine. They're in the process of recovering the money.
Yeah, I mean, at the expense of what? I mean, it's like... Well, it's like people use this analogy around facial recognition. It's like, we've caught, loads of bad people. Well, first of all, I would beg the question, what the state defines as a bad person these days is very different to what I define as a bad person a lot of the time. They coming to people's houses and knocking on their doors for nasty tweets is apparently by the state's version a bad person. So also you've got to ask the question, the motivation behind state surveillance. I don't think it is virtuous. I actually think it's there to watch and monitor and surveil. And actually, if you want to go in the direction of being conspiratorial, edge in the direction of like a social credit style system where we've got mass surveillance everywhere watching and monitoring us. What I want to know is we've got so many big problems to solve that could be tackled in some really extreme and important ways. but we want to focus constantly on the good British people being watched, monitored and surveilled with digital IDs, with facial recognition, with mass surveillance across London. And I just feel like the conversation should not be treating the British public as walking barcodes and potential criminals that need to be fined all the time and need to be snitched on by their neighbours, but should be instead turn to the more important problems, which of course there are hundreds, and I'm not going to list them all now. But I'm just uncomfortable about the complete lack of sincerity from corrupt councils, which, by the way, are very in debt and would really do with finding a lot of good people, which potentially, you know, haven't really committed an offence. I'm not claiming for fact, but the point I'm making is I just feel like there's a complete corruption and inconsistency within councils. They jump on they're demonising the British public a lot, and I feel like this is just going to feed into more of that. It's not something that I want to, you know, it's not something I'm overly passionate about and I'm concrete on, but I think if you ask most people, do we need to be handing in our dash cam footage and recording and monitoring our neighbours and everything? I don't think people want to do that, really. Yeah. And it just comes across to me as more kind of overreach, more surveillance.
But, you know, the thing is, Montgomery, we know there is that kind of person out there that, you know, the kind of people that snitched on others during COVID, because you think, why would your neighbour do that? But they were among us.
Yep. Yeah.
They existed.
Well, George Orwell predicted this. I mean, COVID is an absolutely brilliant example. I live in North London now, won't specifically say where for obvious reasons, but I grew up, you know, my whole family's from London, but I grew up in a village outside of Peterborough. And village mentality and spying on each other and that kind of like during the lockdowns was absolutely rife. And I'll be honest, I detest that mentality, and I'm very pro-community, and sometimes community gets mistaken for, you know, literally looking over your neighbour's fence. This is going to feed into that a lot more, and I just don't like it. I don't know about you, I just don't want to be spied on and watched. We don't do that in Britain. We don't believe in that kind of culture, but councils seem to be promoting it, government seems to be promoting it, and even kind of like Transport for London love it as well, you know, watching, tracking, constant tannoys telling you what to do. I'll be honest with you, I'm just absolutely exhausted and just sick of being told what to do, told where to go, watched, and told that as an individual, I can't make good decisions. As an individual, I can't deal with local problems. I'll be honest, when I'm walking along the street and I see somebody chuck something in front of me like a can or something, I just do what they would have done 50, 60 years ago and go, oi, this is my local community. I care about my local community. Can you pick that up? And most of the time, they'll be quite caught off guard and they'll just pick it up. And this notion of we need to look to local authorities to sort this for us and snitch on each other rather than just deal with the problems ourselves, I just feel like, come on, where are we heading into where we have to rely on the state for absolutely everything? Just keep an eye on your roads, keep an eye on your communities, and just have a bit of common sense. That's what it is. It doesn't require just this watching and monitoring of everyone. It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. I totally agree. Montgomery, great to have you on as ever. Very thorough stuff from Montgomery Toms, the freedom campaigner. It's the dash cam thing, you know, report it, but there will be people that do it. And, you know, we saw it during COVID, you know, folk ringing up I don't know, who did you ring, the council or the police? You know, I think my neighbour's gone out for 2 walks today. I remember having a right royal row on the train because I had removed, you know, the face mask thing, and I just thought, this is crazy. I was feeling a bit rough. I could hardly bloody breathe, and I dropped it down under your chin, and the train was pretty empty-ish, and the woman sat sort of diagonal, sort of pitched. She stood up from her seat and went, "Can you put your mask on, please?" And I thought, who made you Florence Nightingale, for God's sake? What's your beef? And then I ended up being, you know, I kind of made the fatal error because there's nothing an angry person hates more than when the person they're angry with laughs, because that completely scuppers everything. Because obviously they're angry and they want some kind of row. And because I did the kind of laugh thing, because it was a bit hilarious and she was kind of all over the place, this woman, and on it went right until we got off the train, and then she was still yakking on about, she goes, I'm going to ring my friend, I'm going to ring my friend. Ring your friend? Who's your friend, the head of the UN? You daft what's... She was absolutely fuming by the end of it. It went on for about 17 minutes, this row. Got to the station, got off, didn't think twice about it. That woman would be the one with the dash cam video. If you could fit one onto her whatever device, she was probably a bike of some sort, a basket in the front that if she rides fast enough it takes off like the Wizard of Oz. She was that character. People like that will report others because they love it. I don't know what it is. I don't even think it's a sense of duty. If it was just that, I'd have a little bit more understanding. They like the process of dobbing somebody in it, right? Peter is in Oxfordshire. Back to that issue of the housing problem. Peter, good afternoon to you.
Hello, Ian.
Hello.
Thanks for taking the call.
Pleasure.
I was intrigued with the interview you had with the police commissioner, crime commissioner, and her response from the councillors.
Something else, wasn't it?
You would have thought that there would have been either Conservative or Reform councillors there, but of course they must have been Labour or Lib Dem or Green, and obviously they didn't seem to give a damn for the local people or the problems that they were having.
Yeah.
They just wanted to attack the commissioner. It seemed to me that it shows how serious the position is for the Tory party, because obviously they lost a lot of seats in areas like that, and people voted for people that they didn't really know, but people who were just not Tories.
Yes, that seems to be exactly what happened.
Don't really now represent them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a serious situation.
Exactly that. And but to get angry with the Police and Crime Commissioner because she said some stuff that they disagree with, is what's happened to discourse and political argument and debate.
And people are supposed to represent, and they say, they represent people, even the people who don't vote for them.
Yeah.
It's interesting that those people in Essex, the Epping people, their councillors and representatives were very much on board. They were representing them. But in East Sussex, they're not.
Mm.
Just struck me as sort of interesting.
It is interesting, Peter. I love it. Peter in Oxfordshire. Grenville says, that picture of a man, this is the Prince Andrew picture, over a girl that you keep saying is Prince Andrew, is more likely not him. It's actually Epstein. Thought you'd like to do research. Yeah, I mean, all I would say, Grenville, is literally no one is making that point. There's no doubt that it's Prince Andrew. That has not been refuted by anybody. And, of course, you can kind of see it's Prince Andrew. It does look like a younger Prince Andrew. It's not the best of Prince Andrew, but I've not heard anyone else make that argument, although there is something online that Grenville is enclosed, suggesting that it's Jeffrey Epstein, not Prince Andrew. I don't think it's Jeffrey Epstein either, for that matter. But all I would just counter that, Grenville, when you talk about research, is that literally no one from any element of the media, social or otherwise, mainstream or otherwise, as really making that point. But I have to say, when I first saw the picture, I thought, oh, that's a kind of an interesting picture of Prince Andrew. Then I looked and thought, yes, of course it's him. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
The countdown is on and the window is about to slam shut. Transfer deadline day is here again and the football world means business. We'll bring you the bargains, the whispers, every deal, every twist. Which superstar signing is about to shake this season to its core? The biggest breaking stories, and we bring them to you.
It's been that kind of bonkers window.
An unbelievable window.
This is Transfer Deadline Day. This is talkSPORT.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Matt says, Ian, to be fair, I thought Jill, previous caller from the countryside, said sexy bus. I was about to book a train ticket. She said she said flexi bus. Just didn't come out that way. And Gary says, the countryside, as Andrew Lawrence said, the countryside is racist. I was driving through it one day and saw half a dozen sheep doing blackface. It's a very good observation. Sue is in the New Forest. That's a very country place to be. Sue, good afternoon.
Hello, Nick. Lovely to talk to you again.
And you too.
You remember I phoned you up once before. A motorist reversed into me. That was about during the beginning of COVID.
That's right, I do remember that.
I've had lots of problems with them.
Yeah.
And then the other day I spoke to you. We were talking about Miss Conservative of Leamington Spa.
Yeah.
Remember that one? I was born. The thing is, I was born in Leamington Spa, and I was a teenager in the 60s, and that's when this late 60s I was Miss Conservative Leamington Spa.
There you go.
Yep, there we go. But
you're not Miss New Forest now, are you?
Well, no, because I'm 79, so I don't
know. They can't, you know, they're quite diverse and open to all sorts of people now. But I was saying that in a nice way. I'm sure you could cut it, was my point. Listen, the countryside, I mean, obviously it's very racist down there in the New Forest. What are you going to do about it, Sue?
Well, look, I moved down here when I got married to a Southampton fellow, and we're in the New Forest now. We're just outside Lyndhurst. It's a beautiful place, lovely place. What do people think when they come there? I mean, we are a tourist area. We get tons of people coming down here, brockles they're called, and they come round, and campsites, what have you, all that there.
Yep.
And we see all colours and all variations coming down here. The thing is, they come to see what's here.
Yep.
They come to enjoy what's here. Now, if they want something, you know, dizzy and all the rest of it, go up the road and see Peppa Pig. She's just up the road there with her her empire.
I went there.
And that's where Boris went there, if you remember.
I did.
But the thing is, you know, I was brought up in the 50s in a little Warwickshire village. I was born in Leamington, but I was brought up at a place called Morton Morrell, which is a beautiful little village.
Nice.
And, yep, very, very, very pretty.
Very white, I would imagine. Very white, Sue. I'm building a picture of you here.
Well, the thing is, somebody talked about racism earlier about this, as if it was something to do with only educated people who were white, etc., etc. The thing is, you get all people coming into the countryside. You get a lot of people moving here who are educated and black and Chinese and what have you. You know, that's true. But a lot of other people come down. I've met lots and lots of Muslim gentlemen with their children, and we stopped to
So you've not specifically thought, you know, I never see a non-white face in the New Forest. That's never...
No, not
Well, I would imagine, you know, to be honest, I think that's probably most people's experience. So, I've got to run. I've got to run for no other reason than the clock is upon us. Let me just read this out from Paul, who says, reference the Epstein files. Good afternoon, says Paul. It's very polite and lovely when somebody says good afternoon. It's impossible the royal family, the Met, Prime Ministers and close-up protect... Oh, I did read that, didn't I? How could they not have known? Are they all complicit? Which is, I think, a fair question. This came in earlier. We were talking to Montgomery Toms about littering. So this, I suppose, has a correlation with the countryside. Because, you know, littering takes place in all manner of areas and places. And Buckinghamshire Council had a campaign called For Buck's Sake. And I thought, why is it called For Buck's Sake? What's the buck? Is it a deer? Isn't a male deer called a buck? Or something like that? And Montgomery, our guest, said, well, maybe it's buck as in money. And Green has pointed out, fairly bloody obvious, really, wasn't it? It's called For Buck's Sake because Bucks is short for Buckinghamshire. Oh, yeah. Didn't spot that. Do you know, as I said it, here's the funny thing about, like, not spotting something. Something in me said, this is going to be really obvious. Do I dare even raise why it's called For Buck's Sake? Because someone's going to tell... I never thought it was that, though. I never thought that was the thinking or the reasoning behind it. For Buck's Sake, because it's... Yeah. Do you know that, Kev?
What's that, mate?
So, in Buckinghamshire, anybody else texted in about this?
For Buck's sake? What did I come in on? You were saying for Buck's sake.
Well, in Buckinghamshire, they're doing a litter thing. They're trying to get people to snitch on people who are littering, and they've got a campaign called For Buck's Sake. And
For Buck's Sake?
Why is it called Buck's Sake?
Yeah.
What's the reason? Do you know?
I don't know. Does it rhyme with something? I don't know. It sounds to me like very sophisticated wordplay.
I think it was, yeah.
Should make that campaign succeed.
But it's called Buck's Sake because it's Buckinghamshire.
I see. There you are. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Not one of us spotted that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Green, for telling me.
We're going to look into...
littering.
Particularly... No, we're not going to do litter, funnily enough. Whether or not you keep Britain tidy is of no interest to me. But seriously, no. We should keep Britain tidy. It's very important. Very important. But we are going to focus on Peter Mandelson, who I think is in a world of trouble today. Not enough is being made of this. I don't really care about Andrew anymore. He could have been flogging secrets to Xi Jinping while he was trade envoy. But, you know, how much more disgrace can this guy get into?
Yeah.
And he doesn't matter. What we've got now